In July 2024, we saw one of the biggest crashes in U.S. history up until this one.
Bigger than this one in the same amount of time.
It's a crash under Biden. Don't worry about it. It's a crash under Trump. He's ruining the country. So it's just partisanship.
Is saying, hey, look, yes, I am tariffing your shit because while it's going to be more expensive for me, is that you now no longer have an investment strategy that makes it better to where you can offshore my job to Honduras, or you can offshore it to China or wherever the fuck else. So I'm still getting fucking paid.
Tyler, you at least admit that the formula they used for these reciprocal tariffs had nothing to do with trade or non-trade barriers.
Yeah, we had that conversation privately. I think it was stupid. They are building a plant in Texas for 22,000 jobs to make chips and centrifuges. They're also putting a training facility in Detroit to train.
Are they doing that because of the tariffs?
Wait, no, Wick, please.
They said it was a factor,
This is the mind of a tariff defender. They are only capable of thinking in partial equilibrium. Apple investing that money takes resources away from other sectors. Those resources would have otherwise been invested in something that is more productive. If you want to see more content like this, I would really appreciate you liking and subscribing. It really helps with the algorithm. And make sure to check out the Discord and other social links in the description.
Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of Wick TV. It's a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we got a show for you tonight? Where's the energy? I don't know where the energy is, man. Like, welcome to the show, Testy Johnson. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Nasser Games. Nice to see you, Deej Nuts, for $5, starting with, come on, Wick. You could only find a 2% dip for the screenshot. Tisk, tisk, I expected better of you. Look, that's where it was when I made the screenshot. I'm not gonna do the whole searchy game for the worst outlook on this. I want a screenshot that was accurate to the time I put it together. But yeah, today we're gonna be talking about Trump's tariffs and his plans for tariffs and how he is using them, some say, as a negotiating tactic to get to zero tariffs. Some say he's using these as a way to bring back American industrialism. Others say he's using it to destroy the economy on purpose so they can devalue the dollar and refinance the debt. Still others say he's just retarded. And today, we're going to talk about what that is, what that means, and why. And we've got some great people to come and talk to you today. We're going to give the mic first to Nonfon to start this show. Nonfon, tell people who you are, what you do, and what are your thoughts. Go ahead.
I'm Nonfon. You can catch my streams on YouTube and on Twitch and Kick at Nonfon420. And I am the ultimate free trader. I think everything from the kind of shifting, contradictory goal of the tariffs to the insane formula they use to get them to the way they're announcing it and rolling it out has all been fucking insane and basically indefensible in so many ways. I can't fit it all in an opening statement. So I'm going to lay out, I think, a few brief things that I think we're going to circle back to a lot in this debate. One, trade is mutually beneficial. There are benefits from comparative advantage, regardless of if you're in a trade deficit or, what your trading partner tariffs you. Second is we should care about things in aggregate. We should care about the tariffs aggregate impact on manufacturing because they may help it in some ways and hurt it in other ways. We have to care about things in aggregate. They may help wages in some places, hurt wages in other ways. We should care about the aggregate amount of things. 3, trade is just a type of technology. It's just a way to indirectly produce things we import by first producing things to export and then trading for them. Just like any other technology, it might have some people might leave some people worse off, but we would never argue that we should dig canals with spoons instead of shovels because, using spoons would create more jobs. Lastly, the theory and empirical evidence are just generally against tariffs. We have reason to believe in theory that tariffs will be a net job loss, and the empirical evidence supports it. We have good reasons to believe in theory that tariffs reduce productivity, and the empirical evidence supports it, etc., etc. That's all I got to say.
Okay, well, thanks for being here. We're going to get into it. Don't worry. Non-fun, everyone. Next up, Tyler. Go ahead. Tell people who you are, what you do, and what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Average debate enjoyer. I make videos and I stream and I play video games and talk politics. And I think I'm the only left-winger on the panel here today. I'm going to be going up against Trickle-Down Nonfon, as you just heard from, who is very big into his Reaganite pro top 1% earns. We just look at the aggregate numbers overall and don't worry about the middle class losing grounded value and good paying jobs. You know, they can go be the service industry, take out record high credit card debt, work the shittiest jobs they've ever had that don't have healthcare coupled to it at all, and you know, whatever. Just let these other countries that run their entire industries off of burning coal take all of our jobs so we can say we did good in climate change and wash our hands of it and let the planet burn because, you know, my cell phone's a little cheaper. So I'm going to be arguing for the left-wing position here that tariffs are what unions want and need. We saw unions decrease from 28% of the private sector to 7%, and that's why unions have been backing these tariffs, including the United Auto Workers, who came out supporting the car tariff, saying it's about time because Nancy Pelosi ran on it, Barack Obama ran on it, and all of them did absolutely nothing.
Okay, thanks for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Next up, Tiberius D. Who are you? What do you do, and what are your opening thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm generally just hiding out here in the dark room, but that's how I like it. I don't really politically stream anymore. I usually just like to talk to about the 7 intelligent people that I've run into on Twitch Pool, and then hopefully I can find another one here and there. I do not believe that tariffs are openly good, but I don't believe that they're openly bad. I think it's something that you want to use with a scalpel. Unfortunately, when it comes to Donnie, he is the worst person to ever use a scalpel on anything. He likes to use hammers and throws it at anything that he can. I generally think that tariffs can be a good thing. And I think that there is actually evidence within history that they can be, so I'm generally like more pro. But the way that he's going about it is absolute trash, particularly going after against the very trade deal that he signed. Anyway, I'm a moderate right-winger, and MAGA hates me because I'm an institutionalist, and Democrats hate me because I'm a social conservative. Passing it on.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. I was told that you were pro-Trump tariffs, so we might need to bring on a third for your side. We'll see.
I can back some of it up. Some of it I can't.
Fair enough, I guess. We'll get someone, I'm sure, but thank you for being here, and I do appreciate you. Next up, first time guest on my show, TheSnail G. Go ahead.
Yeah, what's going on? I'm TheSnail. I'm just a guy, sick of bad takes. And as far as tariffs goes, tariffs are a tax. Taxes are a tool that can sometimes be good, sometimes be bad. In terms of the Trump tariffs, they're completely indefensible. We had some alluding to a goal of, protecting unions or protecting jobs, whatever that may be. The tariffs fail at that at several levels. Trump says that they're to reduce the trade deficit, but we still put tariffs on countries that we have a trade surplus.
Turn your mic up like double what you got.
Double.
Just crank it.
All right. All right,
Continue.
How's that?
We'll see. Keep going.
All right, so yeah, basically, tariffs are not that helpful in how they're being implemented today. In general, we prefer free trade agreements, which we've had in the past. Obviously, some folks might not benefit from every single trade agreement. That's why we make more trade agreements. We have domestic policy, we have domestic tax policies, subsidies, etc., to help these industries. Really, you don't want to protect an industry just for the sake of protecting industry. And Trump is basically 100% clueless in implementing these tariffs. We don't really know what he wants because the actual implementation contradicts the things he says. And, we're just coming along for the ride. So, that's basically my position.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. We'd like to hear you, though, so you got to say it with your chest, man. I don't know what's with your mic, but it's still very low. Just turn it up, crank it up, and we'll get you in where we can. So, gang, Trump's tariffs. Let's talk about that. Most economists that I've seen say that are worried that this is going to cause a recession. I've seen people on Fox News. I've seen people across the board, Republican, Democrat, left-wing, right-wing, point to specifically Trump's tariffs as quote-unquote causing a recession. How accurate is that? Or are they just blowing smoke up our ass? Or is a recession actually a good thing for some fucking reason? I don't know. Go ahead, defend it, Tyler. I'll give it to you.
Okay, so going off of what the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, says is the economy is shambled, this type of reconstruction is going to create some sort of recessionary action. A recession itself would take a couple quarters. We don't know if it's going to take that long. But what he was talking about 2 days ago was front-loading, getting all these policies out there immediately, letting the economy be stumbling around while it's stumbling around from the previous administration. As we've seen the last 2 years, this crash is nothing but the norm. So why not take these things while the economy is still working itself out, re-implement them at the beginning, and work our way out from there? So it could be that front-loading recession. At the end of the day, Scott Bassett is also an economic advisor, is also saying that the current system we have with artificially low interest rates is pretty much going to collapse on itself eventually. If we have 0% interest rates, what we're doing is incentivizing borrowing to people that might not necessarily be able to afford it if we actually had interest rates. We're giving money to people that can't actually afford their loans. And it's turning out that we're getting more credit card debt, more college debt than ever. People are racking up debt with the current system, and the only people that are getting rich are the 1% of giant companies that can actually afford to do trade on the global level. This is trickle-down economics, hands down.
Okay, wait, real quick. What interest rate is 0%?
The borrowing interest rate that we saw over the last 20 years is not 0%, but artificially
It's not
lower
0%
than it has been.
right
And
now.
0% was an exaggeration, but before COVID, we had a 20-year period of free money, as it was called in the economic
Right, so we had
circles.
easy money after 2008 because the economy kind of sluggishly recovered from that. But also, this crash is absolutely not the norm. I think it's the fourth largest 2-day crash in history. This is absolutely something we have not seen under Biden. Dog, what are you talking about?
Yeah. It's the fourth largest 2-day crash in history. It's the 9th largest 1-day crash. If you fucking pull out some ass-like statistic like that, absolutely.
That's an
if you actually
ass-like
just take a look at the
statistic?
stock market for the last 2
Don't
years,
you think that indicates
it's
that
the norm.
isn't the norm? That isn't the norm? What do you mean? It's not normal for stocks to crash this much within 2 days. It's not normal for stocks to fall this much within a day. What do you mean?
generally, but if you look at the last 2 years,
Generally?
as I said, it's the norm because that's what's been happening.
We did not have
2024.
stock market crashes like this in 2022 or in
did.
2023.
In July 2024, we saw one of the biggest crashes in U.S. history up
Bigger
until
than
this one.
Bigger than this one in the same amount of time.
It's a crash under Biden. Don't worry about it. It's a crash under Trump. He's ruining the country.
So
It's
most
just
of the-
partisanship. It's
No,
so partisan.
no.
You talked yourself into being a Reaganite just to oppose Trump.
So again, okay, so two things. One, I'm not convinced that obviously stock market crashes could have multiple causes. Some of them are the president's fault. A lot of them aren't the president's fault. I think the last one that we had under Biden or whatever, the Kamala crash, I think that had to do with the Bank of Japan raising interest rates. That's my memory of that crash, and I don't think it was as big as this one. And secondly, I'm a neoliberal. I don't claim to be anything other than a neoliberal, okay? The idea that there's some type of contradiction between me being a neoliberal and me being pro-free trade is hilarious. It's ridiculous. There's obviously no contradiction there.
Yeah.
Neoliberals are the ones that like free trade. If you don't want to call me a left-winger because of that, that's absurd. But or that's stupid because there are plenty of other economic interventions that I'm in favor of, and I think generally it's fine to call me a left-winger because of that. But obviously,
Okay, so
I want what's best for the middle class. I just happen to believe that free trade is what's best for the middle class. I don't believe that protectionism, which I believe costs jobs and lowers aggregate income and all these things, is good for the middle class.
So what you're saying is what's best for the middle class is if these giant companies that can afford to do economics on that level, on the global level, make a ton of money and it trickles down to the middle class is what you're saying.
We don't have to jam this into trickle down. I believe that. I believe
That's what
that.
you're for.
I believe that increasing job opportunities and lowering the cost of consumer goods is good for the middle class. That is what I believe, and I believe free trade does that.
Okay, and you're saying that other instances like sanctions and things of that nature aren't anti-free trade, but tariffs are.
No, I'm not saying. I think sanctions are anti-free trade, and there's plenty of sanctions that I
And
probably
climate
don't
policy?
support. But
What if we have climate policy, we force somebody through economic coercion or economic intervention to adopt forms of climate policy to do trade with us? Is that not free trade?
Well, hold on, Tyler.
That's economic coercion.
So one. I don't know if I would strictly consider that free trade if we're literally engaging coercion to make them have some environmental regulation. But this is insane, Tyler. You do not believe that Trump's goal with this is to get other countries to negotiate on the environment. You don't believe this. You don't believe this.
I don't care what Trump's goal is. I'm talking about the actual result of the tariffs. And if it's good or not, I don't care if Trump's goal is to fucking get to the moon. I'm talking about what's going to happen to the economy as a result.
If Trump's goal isn't to improve the environment or whatever, how are we gonna negotiate with these countries to improve the environment? What do you mean, Doc?
We're not. We haven't been. They're scaling up with coal plants. India, China are spending more money on different things that we've already banned in this country, scaling up to meet the production needs because we've shipped off their manufacturing to them. If we bring that manufacturing back to the United States, yes, it'll cost more, but at the same time, it also won't be polluting the environment because we don't run our grid off of coal.
No, so I don't believe
Didn't
that's.
Trump say drill, baby, drill? Are we drilling
Well, that's true as
more
well.
oil than ever?
Yeah.
Also, the European Union, who we're putting tariffs on, do you think that they have less environmental regulations than us?
No, but I was going to get to all the wins that came from this. The European Union just came out 2 hours ago and said they will match Trump on zero tariffs starting immediately as soon as he's
already.
Yeah, Trump rejected that deal and the deal with Vietnam, and even though Israel lowered its trade barriers, Trump still tariffed Israel. Can you, Tyler, you at least admit that the formula they used for these reciprocal tariffs had nothing to do with trade or non-trade barriers?
Yeah, we had a conversation privately. I think it was stupid. I thought it was going to be way more complicated than it was.
So if the formula they use to calculate these tariffs has nothing to do with the actual tariff they imposed, if Donald Trump is openly saying this isn't enough, we need to run trade surpluses with these countries, why on earth do you think he's going to accept any deal for free trade with these countries? Why on earth? Why would we think that? He's already rejected some.
Because he's already also gotten rid of some too. So if you're just going to cherry pick the fact that he's rejected the newest tariffs before they even went into place, I think in his mind, he'd have to go in for a couple of weeks to let these countries know, hey, this is what you get for fucking putting tariffs up against us when we were hurting economically. We're going to show you a little bit of what it's about. Maybe it's a slight spank on the ass before we take them away. But he is offering them the off-ramps, and 50 countries have reached out to him, including India, the EU, Canada. All sorts of countries have reached out and said they'll drop their tariffs. So if 50 of 170, some of the biggest countries in the world, are saying they're going to drop their tariffs, how is this not a victory?
Wait,
Because
so the whole plan is to get
Hold
rid
on. Let's Snail in. Snail, go ahead, please, and use your big boy voice. Remember.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I thought we're on the pro-tariff side, but we're saying actually the ultimate goal is to have deals with no tariffs. We want to get rid of the tariffs eventually. So is it just a negotiation tactic, or are tariffs good? Which is it? They can't.
That we got to get into details because there's 3 different types of tariff that have been put out using 2 different types of policy. If we want to get into the tariffs that are being used, fentanyl, we have the risk tariffs, the one that got voted down recently on the Canadian border. Those are for different reasons. Trump's getting concessions out of those countries. Other than Canada, I can give you exactly what the concessions are for each one of those, and most of them we've gotten them. The other tariffs he's talking about, the 10% flat tax, people inside his administration are saying that needs to happen to make us have a competitive edge in these countries. Even if they don't do reciprocal tariffs, that 10% is going to give us a manufacturing bump that we needed to undo some of the work that's been done over the last 50 years. Because again, in the 1960s, we're at 30% manufacturing.
Yeah,
so I can wait. I want to reply to that 1960 30% manufacturing point at some point. But I mean, look, Tyler, come on. You can't tell me every time Trump comes out on stage and rages about their trade deficit, rages about what you just said, he wants to bring manufacturing back. It pulls out of the free trade agreement we were going to have with the trans-Pacific nations. You can't tell me this guy just wants free trade with these countries when he says tariffs are the best word in the dictionary over and over. Come on, man. Really?
Yeah, I watch him speak, so I know exactly what he's saying on these things. He's not saying, I love free trade. Free trade is the best thing in the world. He's saying these are awful deals. We're getting ripped off. He came out against TPP, and that was one of the major reasons why he won. Hillary Clinton had to reverse her stance on something she helped negotiate because it was so unpopular when he came out against it. This is something the people want, and you might not, everyone, blah blah blah. Yeah, you might not like democracy at all and want to just rule by fiat, but we have a democracy here. And people want this to go in the direction. Maybe I'm not saying free trade is bad. I'm not saying there's not benefits to it. I'm saying the pendulum has swung too far in this direction and it needs some pullback. And this is the welcome pullback. I did say fiat. I'm accidentally. My bad.
I mean, to be clear, I like democracy generally.
Okay, I don't know the fiat joke, but
it was a wrong word.
Just kind of center things a little bit, right?
Wait, can I? Wick, please.
Okay,
I still gotta answer your question, Wick.
And then I want to center things. Go ahead.
Okay, listen. First of all, I like democracy generally. It's just that, when considering whether something is good or bad, I don't really care, if voters think this thing is good or bad. And also, this is going to take a second, sorry, Wick, but I just don't buy into the idea that the reason the manufacturing share of employment is lower than it was in the 60s, whatever, is because of trade. A lot of it is, one, we've just gotten more productive. The country that lost the most manufacturing jobs in the past 100 years has been China. China's still the manufacturing, powerhouse of the world or whatever. They just got more productive. The same thing happened in the U.S. That's why manufacturing output grew all the way up until 2008. Well, the manufacturing share of employment was falling down. Employees got better at making more things. And we've also, along with that, just moved higher up the value chain. A lot of the manufacturing jobs in the U.S. now are making like highly specialized, high value added stuff. It's not even jobs that a lot of high schoolers can get anymore, because these are jobs that require a lot of knowledge and training to do. And the last thing is that this is a pattern every developed country, including the ones like Germany and South Korea, which have strong manufacturing sectors and trade surpluses, have followed. They follow the same pattern: a continued decline in agricultural employment, a continued rise in service sector employment, and the manufacturing share of employment following an inverted U-shaped path. It rises at first, it peaks, and then it falls. Every advanced economy has followed this pattern. There are structural reasons behind it. If you want to read the book about it, read Behind the Curve by Robert Z. Lawrence. But it's a normal path for all advanced economies to take, and it's dumb to try to reverse it.
Okay, who's blue shirt? It's Snail G. Okay, thank you for the 100 bits. Let me read these things, and we're going to give it to the Tiberius D here. And then I do have a question to maybe get us on track a little bit. $5 from Deej Nuts to say, even with crashes, stocks are up almost 100% since COVID. 98% of that isn't held by retail investors. The average youngin view it as ill-gotten gains. Thank you for the $5. $5 from Artemis Fowl. Welcome back, Artemis Fowl. Free trade was great for the middle class. Just ask the Rust Belt after we implemented NAFTA, idiot. And then $5 from Artemis Fowl. EU offered 0% tariffs on construction materials, not a blanket 0% overall. That isn't worth taking some word EAE, the flat rate. Thank you for the $5, and thank you for the 6-month membership, Deej Nuts. I'm an engineer with no degree. He is wrong. And then $2 from Deej Nuts. Was the 5 trillion post-COVID from productivity? ? Thank you for the money. But let's give the mic to Tiberius to weigh in, and we'll see what he has to say. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. So defending Trump to at least some degree, while I think that Trump's tariffs definitely can be recessionary, is there any good in this? I'm going to have a crazy take here, but I'm going to throw it out. If you ever wanted to purposely start a recession in politics, this is when you want to do it. At the very beginning of a term, at the very beginning of any of this system, is where you are basically putting yourself on the back foot so you can advance forward for the rest of your term. Do I think it's smart? I'm not sure yet, because no one's actually done this before. But I think that Republicans have been really good at throwing a lot of the economic woes on the side of the Democrats optically. And while I don't necessarily agree with it, I have to say it's been effective. And if they continue to be successful with that, this politically can be a coup de grace for the Republicans. So that's the why. And then as far as what he claims versus what he's getting at, I got to be honest here. A lot of this is legalism. Trump is claiming he's doing things for different reasons, because if he actually claimed for the reasons he actually wanted it, he wouldn't have the legal authority to impose the tariffs, which is a huge problem. And I hope we can all get into that.
That's abuse of power. No way to get around that. Trump is abusing, especially with Canada. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Wait,
okay,
yeah,
and
so
if we all agree on that, then we can smack that. I do have about half the things that Nonfon said earlier that I do want to get in this angle with, but Wick, this is your show, and you said you wanted to recenter this.
Well, depending on what it is, maybe my question will help, right? Get us into the weeds here. So a lot of chatter has been talked about how, in one of our super chatters just mentioned, the stock market isn't indicative of a healthy or a non-healthy economy. Many people have said that, oh, it's just the billionaires, it's just the millionaires, it's just the 1%. I think you said this in your opening statement. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler. That's what's taking the hit right now, and the middle class and the lower class isn't really going to be affected. Do we believe this? Is this true? Why or why not?
I did not say the lower class is going to not get affected. They're absolutely, like, if you put a new tax in, you put new climate policy in, you put new worker regulations in, it's absolutely going to raise the cost of production, and it's going to hurt the middle class in the short term. We're not going to deny that.
Okay. But let's talk about the stock market specifically. Does the stock market losing value matter to most Americans? Why or why not?
Yes, because we should have 401ks. We should have investments in the stock market. Most people will just invest in their work 401k, have it in the bank, and that is investing in the stock market. So you might not realize it, but if you all check on your 401ks today, you'll find them about 10 to 15% lower than a few months ago, which is crazy. for one person's actions to have a 10 to 15% reduction in your retirement savings. If you were due to retire soon in the next few years, you're basically screwed. You just lost 10 to 15% of your retirement time and savings.
I want to split hairs here.
Yeah, I mean, I think
it's definitely beneficial to have a 401k. I'm not going to push against that because I want to afford that going into the future, is that 401ks are better than Social Security. But on the other side of that is that for the majority of Americans, no, this is not a huge issue. The last numbers I can get is that about 73 million Americans have a 401k. So you're basically talking about the top 30%. I totally get if you have the rest of the country saying, hey, you rich folks and your middle class folks can get fucked because I've been eating shit for the last 4 years. I can roll with that conversation. I definitely can.
I mean, yeah. So look, I mean, not everyone has a 401k. For the people who have a 401k, it matters quite a lot to them. But I think the stock market reflects a lot of uncertainty right now. It reflects, I think the CNN has their fear index. It reflects the fact that people are fucking losing it because not only are they worried about tariffs, they don't even know what tariffs will actually go into effect. And we know that uncertainty is just generally pretty bad for the economy. It reduces investment. It reduces consumer spending. Part of the reason that GDP now forecast is down all the time is because businesses are investing less. Business investment has stopped growing. I mean, it's great. I think it's like 0.4% last time or whatever last time I checked. Consumer spending, I believe, is also slowed down in growth. It reflects uncertainty, and uncertainty is bad.
So business spending is up from last month. Leads into a good point. Trump says there's a promised $5 trillion of investment spending in the United States from foreign companies. We're talking centrifuges and chips from the number one Taiwanese company. Apple building a 22,000 job plant in Texas, and then a trading facility in Detroit. There's about $5 trillion in investment, building, and whatnot that's being rushed through the EPA right now. So they just look at these current numbers and then kind of ignore everything that's coming down the pipeline that's predicted to come out around Q2, Q3 is when we start seeing these numbers come in. It doesn't compute. Like, Trump can only move so fast when he's doing so many things. He's had roundtable meetings with all these business leaders. He's had his tariff team. He's had Scott Betsett and Steve and what the fuck is his name? The Secretary of Commerce talking with these companies personally. They were well aware of these tariffs beforehand, before they made their investment. They know exactly why they're investing in the United States. We're seeing a ton of manufacturing come in at record numbers. Again, $3.5 trillion has already been signed up in like 2 months. So to say there's no investment while we're doing record-breaking investment spending is just wild to me, just because it hasn't materialized on paper.
It is true. If you check the GDP Now forecasting, I can probably find the archived version. Part of the reason it's low is that business investment in aggregate, obviously, it's still technically up, but it's like zero. It was 0.0 growth.
Yeah, it went
point.
up it
was like 0.4% growth. And look, again, this is gonna go back to trade as a type of technology. It's gonna go back to actually two things. One, there are mutual benefits from trade, and trade is just a type of technology. This investment that's happening, that is one, arguably deadweight loss, right? Because we're spending our own domestic resources making things that we could be importing for cheaper, right? There's no reason to have that distortion. You're hurting a ton of other industries by doing that. You're reducing investment in other industries and shifting that investment towards protected industries. There may be reason to do that if there's national security concerns, but having that Japanese investment, SoftBank or whatever, do shit was not a national security concern. Actually, that was foreign direct investment. That wasn't even like domestic investment or anything.
That leads us into intent, though. Why is Trump doing this? Why is Trump telling Mexico and Canada, because of the USMCA that he wants to restructure, that since China found a loophole in the USMCA to put a bunch of investment into Mexico, they're now shipping things past the tariff through Mexico into the United States again? He's asking both of those countries to tariff. A lot of these countries around, what we're seeing is a 60% tariff coming into effect against China in a minute here. This is causing people to massively decouple. When they did decouple last time, they went to Vietnam, they went to other countries. So you can see these tariffs going on all the other countries they went to, because they're not coming back to the United States. They just go to the next cheap haven. So every cheap haven needs to be cut off in order for them to come back to us. And they have been. He's also threatening a 100% tariff if you leave the country as a U.S. company.
Wait,
So,
Trump signed the
that's actually probably
USMCA,
unconstitutional.
Yeah.
But
And then they
real
found-
quick,
Yes,
hold on.
they found a loophole.
Okay, but just real quick. Why do they have to come back at all? Right, that's my question. Right, like, so if they can't go and they can't get it for enough profit margin, what's to stop them saying, okay, well, we'll just do other things. We're not gonna produce that anymore. So it's not gonna make enough
somebody
money.
else,
Why would
somebody
we do
else
it?
is going to step up and do it. It's the basic law of capitalism. If there is a demand, a supply will rise to meet it. So if
As
one
long as
company
it's
decides they want
affordable to do so, right?
Yeah,
But
but
when you
yeah,
have
absolutely.
protectionists, that exists in a free trade system. When your system is no longer a free trade system, and you have protectionism and tariffs and taxes and all these things that are on these things, it can absolutely stifle STEMI investment. That happens
Yeah.
all the time.
absolutely, that's the whole reason why people
real
want
quick.
to.
Yeah, so my point was about, again, think about the aggregate business investment. No one is denying that if you tariff industries, you're going to shift investment away from unprotected industries and towards protective industries. Very directly, tariffs have mechanisms for hurting other sectors, right? Like, the tariffs hurt exports because they tend to appreciate exchange rates. They tend to make the price of the dollar go up. That's not happening right now because people are freaking the fuck out and dumping their dollars. But generally, they make the price of the dollar go up, and that hurts export industries, right? And secondly, your point about the I want to mention the point about the cheap haven part. They just go to the next cheap haven or whatever. I will mention what that does is it undoes a lot of progress that my goat Biden made with friendshoring, okay? There are probably industries that we don't want to be made. We don't want, production to be in China, but it doesn't really matter if production of steel or whatever is taking place in Japan or South Korea, our allies. If you tariff these other countries, production doesn't want to move there, even though it would be beneficial for us if the production moved there. Like, he's tanking our relationship with our allies. Also, we can crash our own economy. It's absurd.
Wait.
Like,
Hold on. So I'm going to address both your points. One, what productivity means is using coal as energy, paying your workers lower wages, no worker protections or consumer protection. Like what you're saying, by productive, that you mean finding a loophole through all the things I advocate for here. So that, and the second thing you're saying is like, if yes, they're gonna go to our friends over there. Maybe they're gonna go here, there, the other place, but at the end of the day, those countries also have tariffs against us too. South Korea, Japan also have tariffs. If they're our friends, why are they tariffing us?
first
And
of all,
why can't Trump put tariffs against them and see over 50 countries come to him and offer to drop them? It's
Tyler,
working.
I'll
you
let you
agree
answer that,
the level.
Nonfon, and then we're gonna go to Tiberius. So answer the question, then to Tiberius.
Yeah, so, I mean, you agree that the level of tariffs that Trump is imposing is nowhere near reciprocal and not even based on the tariffs that they are applying to us. It's fucking absurd. Obviously, the reason that they have tariffs is in some part because just like any country, there's going to be some level of special interest group capture and like rational ignorance on behalf of consumers because tariffs have concentrated benefits and diffuse detriments, right? A lot of times special interests can lobby to protect their industry because it's not rational for consumers to look into what industries are being tariffed because it's just they are only paying like $30 per year
So
per
people are
consumer
dumb,
or whatever.
in other words.
It's rational. Well, no, they're not. It's actually
Special
rational.
interest.
It's not worth their time to look into what industries are being protected because it's such a diffuse benefit or detriment.
Okay. Did you answer the question? If so, we're gonna go to Tiberius.
Yeah,
He answered it. No.
Tiberius, go ahead.
I want to answer your question, Wick, on just like why would you do this? Like, what's the actual benefit? I'm gonna hit this from the side that I'm kind of convinced of, and I studied economics in college. Granted, I don't have a huge degree or anything. I'm kind of a layman, but this is based upon the idea that you think comparative advantage is actually horseshit. Largely, just simple terms is that if you all trade, it's the same way in that if I specialize in a particular job and you specialize in a particular job, we're going to have mutual benefits from, doing those things. Countries can do the same. But the assumption of why this would be wrong is that the same thing does not apply on a macro level. Is that you can have entire countries with a billion people who make 1/3 or 1/5 of what you do, or maybe even 1/10, and they can front load every economic doctrine that you have to where you're actually losing out money year after year after year. Not only have we seen advancements to China over the last 30 years be somewhere in the neighborhood of like $50 trillion, but we're still paying them for their goods at the same time. And some people are like, hey, why is it that I keep getting promised this new opportunity, this new golden era with free trade, and I lost my job 10 years ago at Whirlpool, and yet I can't get one of these new jobs. I can't get anything that actually worked for me. I definitely get the skepticism, but I'm going to take it to another degree. When it comes to service jobs versus industrial jobs tend to be higher value added. And I'm not saying we can bring them all back. Automation is fucking a thing. But from the estimates I've seen, we've lost somewhere between 20 to 40 million jobs to offshoring. And even if you account for automation, some people believe that you can get anywhere between 3 to 10 million of those back at some point. I think the appropriate figure is somewhere around the 6 million mark. Imagine what you do to your job costs, to your labor costs, if you put 6 million jobs back in the economy. What does that do to your paycheck? Probably does quite a bit. And so this is the full circle conversation. If you believe in increasing the minimum wage, increases demand, which makes it to where you can afford things, then you want to do tariffs, because that makes it to where your jobs are now guaranteed by the government to be more cost competitive within house, which means that your job is now worth more because there's more jobs to go around. I'm done with that conversation.
Yeah, so number one, I'm really curious where you're getting the 40 fucking million number from. I mean,
That's
might be
the really high end estimates that I've seen. I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay, yeah. So even the higher end estimates I've seen are like, maybe 5 million lost due to like the China shock or whatever, and that's even that I think is an overestimate because that's not necessarily accounting for productivity. But on the wages point, again, you have to think about the aggregate, and you have to think about the other static and dynamic benefits from comparative advantage. Okay, so when we trade with other countries, everyone's real wage mechanistically increases because the price of goods falls. That saving will then allow consumers, that'll mechanistically raise wages, obviously. Those savings will either let us consume more or save more, which will help businesses invest. And that's a good thing. And you also got to think about what happens to the export sector. When we supply countries with dollars via trade, that enables them to buy U.S. exports and or invest in the U.S., which again will help businesses invest. And it'll help the export sector. It'll raise wages in the export sector as well. And again, we know we have good reason to believe in theory why trade increases income. And guess what? Empirical evidence supports it. There are 3 different studies I have, all of which say trade increases income in aggregate. And there's also evidence that it actually disproportionately benefits the poor because the poor spend more on imported goods. A higher percentage of their income is spent on imported goods.
I have a hard time believing at least one point of this, and is that I can agree with most of the general level. It's like, hey, look, trade seems to make or allow for cheaper goods to enter our domestic market. We can talk about how we have more efficiency within our market, and therefore we're allowed to assert capital into different directions of investment. The problem that I have, and this is kind of where I kind of don't believe some of this is actually as good as people like to sell it off for, is that look who tends to make all the fucking money with this system. It is really going to the top 10% in the country. And it really seems to me that since we have kind of gotten off the tariff regimen, the causation is not correlation, but I want to leave this on the table. Since we've stopped doing tariffs in a major way, we have seen the top 1% and the top 10% run away with the fucking house, run away with the golden goose for the better part of the last 70 goddamn years. I think this might be one of the factors that we said, oh yeah, it was a great idea to get rid of it, but in actuality, that's because look who's writing the paychecks and look who's actually taking the checks, who's saying it.
Okay. Snail G, do you want a chance to respond? I want to make sure that you get a chance.
The top 10% being a problem or growing more than everybody else, that just seems like a problem with your domestic taxation. You just change the taxes that you charge those top 10%. You bring more wealth overall into the country. Tariffs just seem like a silly way of doing that in the most backwards way possible that ultimately reduces demand because you're tariffing, again, you're taxing the middle class consumption, the lower class consumption, the consuming class. The top 10% don't consume as much as the average person. So you want to tax those people, bring the wealth back in the country, and then drop taxes on lower and middle class.
I get what you say. Hold on, let me get this. I get what you say. This is kind of ass backwards, but I think it's ass backwards on purpose. Is saying, hey, look, yes, I am tariffing your shit because while it's going to be more expensive for me, is that you now no longer have an investment strategy that makes it better to where you can offshore my job to Honduras or you can offshore it to China or wherever the fuck else. So I'm still getting fucking paid, and that's Excuse me. I apologize. I'm from the Rust Belt, so maybe I'm just super bitter here, but I can tell you that this is the, cultural experience of my area for the last 40 years, is that we've seen all these jobs go away. We get promised that there's going to be these new jobs, and they're not there. They're all shittier. They're all these service jobs that are supposed to be all better, all greater, and they're fucking not. And if you are going to get that new job, you better pay out the fucking nose for it so you can become a doctor or some, doctorate level person that can actually fulfill those roles. The vast majority of these people that are finding this, and maybe your mileage may vary, is that what we're trading out for is decent value-added jobs where you're building nuts and bolts, or you're welding shit, or, basically just fabricating things. And we're trading it out for, hey, guess what? You get to work at Sears, or you get to work at Kohl's, selling all the things that are made somewhere else. And that doesn't have a lot of value add. So forgive me, but I'm very much not convinced that the ass backward way is actually the thing that we've been missing.
Do Americans want factory jobs?
Yes.
I understand. I understand that some do, but I've worked factory jobs. And oh my God, they're the most soul-sucking, terrible experiences I've ever had. I would rather work as a streamer, honestly, than do it than sit as a cog in the factory machine.
How controversial of you!
As a fellow Rust Belter, can I try to build a bridge with you, Wick, on this?
Oh, please.
All right, so on one level, I totally get it. Some of these jobs absolutely suck, and some of them are 12-hour shifts. You might have it 4 or 5 days a week,
and it's not good.
Look, I get that. The thing is I don't understand what the alternative that's being supported by the other side actually is, because if you're talking about some of these higher end jobs where it's like, hey, you got your master's or your PhD and you go off to be part of the academia or the corporate elite, that's great. Those people are making it. But that's not the average person in our neighborhoods that are getting these things, right? It's literally, they're trading down. They're working now 60 hours a week at fucking Casey's because that's all they can find. Are you with me on this? Which is more soul-sucking, man?
I even respect that, too.
I understand that, there's people who are worried because there's a lot of economic uncertainty, right? But these tariffs don't help with the economic uncertainty because
not disagreeing with that.
They're gonna bring jobs back, but also, right? Employment. Look, when 2008 hit, shortly after, right, we had a lot of layoffs where I was working at the time, and I went in the military to kind of get away from that, right, to kind of escape that kind of trajectory and things like that. For a few other reasons, I'm patriotic, right? I'm a Heinlein enjoyer. I believe I have a duty to my country, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a good excuse. But what I'm trying to say is that in the last 20, 30 years, yes, jobs have been lost to automation, to offshoring, et cetera. But we have other jobs now that people are getting. Our economy is changing. And yes, that is hurting some people, but it's helping so many more. I am richer and I am better off today than I was 20 years ago. And I think that most Americans can say the same.
I mean, I got an issue with that part for sure. You can say you're richer, I can say I'm richer, but let's be real, 20 years ago, I was just coming out of high school, right? I'm about to have my 15th reunion,
sure,
right?
I'm 41,
right.
so I was coming...
What I'm getting at is...
Americans generally are richer today, even when at the same age as their parents.
I don't believe that with the rampant asset inflation, because it's like, hey, yeah, we're technically making more.
I'll give you that.
Yeah,
it's like a house, but that's
it's like, hey, we're making more than we actually have ever, right? That's both with compensation and full benefits, right? The net worth, I believe you, but it's all gone to the fucking boomers. Millennials are absolutely getting their fucking ass kicked.
I don't believe that to be true.
I see it every day, man. And
that's right. If you look at actual data, if you look at even only private market income, so not including government benefits, and even using CPI, which is a measure that I think probably overstates inflation, the wages of Gen Z and millennials are both higher than they were for their parents at the same age. And a big reason why that's happened is because the price of goods has decreased because of trade. That is a big reason why that has happened. And look, I don't think, again, you guys have to think about the aggregate. Do either you guys deny that free trade generally, if you don't like the word free trade, that's fine, generally increases aggregate income.
Absolutely. Less regulations mean more business. Less taxes mean more transactions. 100%. I'm saying the juice isn't worth
That's
the
not
squeeze.
always true.
I'll separate from Tyler on this one. I'm not 100% convinced of that, and I'll get in with the aggregate, and I'll go into the conversation of it's like, oh yeah, even when I'm told like I'm richer than my father was, which I'm fucking not. When I actually compare this for peer to peer for people who were in my shoes 20 years ago, like I've seen the math. Or actually, a great example of this was 1995 to 2025 today, right? And if you were the average person with all the average expenses, you're up like $600 in 1995. But if you do the math today, you're in the whole 30 fucking grand. Like, yeah, like I don't believe this shit where it's just like, hey, we're richer than ever. Sure. But you know what? We're paying more than ever. Fucking cite these little
That's
bastards.
why you have real wages. That's why you adjust for inflation. What are you talking about, bro?
And this is the part where it's like, look, I studied in economics. I support my friends in academia to a point, but I think somebody's fucking lying here. I really goddamn do. Because like it's basically telling a third of the country that you're completely fucking incompetent and you don't actually understand a goddamn thing. And it's like, yeah, I've done the math, guys. Like, why is it I'm spending way more than my parents did for the same fucking things? Why is it I'm spending way more for a house? Why is it that I'm spending way more for a car?
College, healthcare.
Yeah, like a lot of these things when they
Insurance.
add up, it's not even fucking close, even adjusted for wages.
So, it makes
Taxes.
sense. It obviously makes sense why the price of services would rise over time compared to the price of goods. It's called the Baumol effect. It's called cost disease, believe it or not. That makes a lot of sense.
I get the ratchet effect and all that shit, right?
Wages are stagnant, correct?
No.
No.
No,
they're
wages
not
aren't stagnant.
No.
I mean, I'm not even going to take that. Like, it's not that wages are
Yeah,
stagnant.
but
It's just
to a
expenses are fucking explosive compared.
That's why we have
this is the,
real.
this is the crazy part for me because it's one of those things where the most expensive thing for the average American is what can make them the most money. Asset inflation has been huge for 40 years. Most of that is your car, most of that is your house, but that can go into other things, right? That can go to stocks and bonds and the whole 9 yards. If you have those things and you're able to materialize those into financial gain, yeah, you're going to make fucking bank. But getting into those things is an absolute goddamn nightmare, right? If you don't have a house and you haven't had one for the last 7 years, good fucking luck getting one now, right? That's kind of the issue here. Like, I hear the things, I've seen the data points from people like Nonfon, and I'm like,
tariffs will make it easier or harder to build houses in America?
If I'm correct, short-term harder, short-term harder, long-term, it might go even. I'm more interested to see what it does for labor demand. That's what I'm counting on. Is that people aren't going to find that their goods are cheaper as much as they're going to find that their paychecks are bigger when the tariffs go full
Why?
cycle.
Wages are, if you study economics, wages are to a large extent determined by productivity with comparative advantage.
Yeah, and this is where
people specialize in what they are more. People specialize in what they are more productive in. That's why America specializes in these service sector jobs that we are more productive in. That's why wages have grown over time, and we trade with other countries that have the lower average productivity for the goods that we buy. Like that's how. That's
hold on, Tyler. Let me get this. I totally understand that. I get you on that. When it comes down to it, economics is a demand-driven is literally a demand-driven fucking engine, right? We can say supply is there to meet that, but most of the time, if you want shit, you need demand for it. And for some reason, we're treating it, and I'm going with Tyler on this. This is supply-side economics again. We're back to Reaganomics, but the left is preaching this shit, which is fucking wild to me. It's like, hey, look, don't worry about demand. If demand shrinks because, they don't have as good a wages, that's okay, man. We'll figure it out later. Nah,
what do you mean demand? I don't think demand. Obviously, if aggregate income is increasing, I think demand increases. If consumers save money because they have cheaper goods, that's going to increase the amount of money they can spend on other things. If jobs in the export sector are, that's great. If jobs in the export sector.
Yeah,
I know because your mind is broken and you're not thinking in aggregates. I understand some people's wages would be increased by tariff. That makes sense to me, but you're thinking in partial equilibrium, okay? You have to consider all the other jobs that are going to see increased wages because of free trade. All the other, the price of goods going down because of free trade. That's going to increase demand in the long run.
You're basically making everyone else in the country poorer to improve the Rust Belt. And I can understand why that might be appealing for Rust Belt people, because you spent the last, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever, seeing, like you mentioned, jobs leave, towns empty, ghost towns. That stuff is very visceral. I can totally, sympathize with that. And a lot of those jobs end up going to service sector economy jobs in, cities, New York, LA, whatever. And it's a lot more visible to see your town decrease by 90% than it is to see New York and LA get, 10% more productive. I can totally agree and understand with all of that. I am
completely happy.
Let him finish. Let Snail finish, and then you can reply. Go ahead.
I think the problem is that's a result of the actual supply side economics that Reagan did, where he just cut taxes on wealthy people, where I think we need taxes in terms aligned with productivity. So as productivity goes up and as these top 10%ers are making more and more money, you need to tax those gains and redistribute the wealth so that these people don't feel left out. Because like I mentioned, all these jobs went from the Rust Belt to tech companies, basically. And tech companies have really only benefited coastal cities, big cities, and middle America kind of got lost in all that. And like you mentioned, your alternative is just these shitty service jobs in the town that don't make anyone feel good, that aren't great compared to, even for all the faults of your factory job, it felt like a secure thing that your family was part of. I can respect and understand all of that. This is just like this has nothing to do with tariffs. It has nothing to do with free trade. It's just a problem of our shitty domestic tax policy for the last 50 years that hasn't served the people, and we keep voting.
$7, and then I'll let Tyler go, and I'll toss it to Tyler. $7 Canadian. Thank you for the Canadian dollars. I hope it doesn't get tariffed. Jeff Lewis says, I think these tariffs will lead to Mega Block 1 from Judge Dredd. Goods are going to be more expensive, and people's wages are going to go down. Thank you for the $7. Okay, Tyler, we're going to pass the mic to you. You've been wanting to say something. Now is your chance.
Okay, so what Nonfon's talking about here and keeps repeating the same point over and over. Yes, you are correct. Tiberius and I are disagreeing here. You are correct that this way is the best way to maximize GDP. 100%. You keep going back to that well. The best way to maximize GDP around climate is to cut all climate policy. The best way to maximize GDP when it comes to criminals is to let all criminals out of prison so they can get to work. The best way to maximize GDP across the board is always not the right answer, because there's other factors besides just maximizing GDP, like the life of the people living in your country. And if you're telling them, well, over time, 30 years from now, you're going to be richer, so just suffer, it does not work. You're telling people this is the problem I have with all libertarian arguments like this, is you ignore the practical reality of the people on the ground. If the economy shifts, and it's called structural unemployment, when the economy shifts away from your type of particular skill set and you can't find a job, when that happens, that's what our robust safety net is for. But the robust safety net taxes the people with the money to make them less productive. So your argument carried over to any other subject would be to dismantle the safety net, worker protections, climate protections, everything else you stand for.
One, I don't believe that is the case. I believe there is probably positive effects of redistribution, even on growth, at least to some extent. It's the same thing with climate things. Like, I believe because carbon is a negative externality, it actually is a good thing. It actually is a pro-growth thing to tax carbon and to internalize that externality. I don't see what the benefit is in keeping, artificially protecting these manufacturing jobs just so this one subset of people doesn't have some amount of structural unemployment. The labor market right now is pretty strong to begin with. Why are we doing this? Is an insane fucking policy.
It's
just to
manufacturing and production. What? You're leaving out production as well.
What manufacturing production? Unemployment right now is at 4.2% or something. The prime age employment population ratio is at 80% right now. The labor market generally is in a good place. I don't see why we need to have 10% fucking tariffs across the board, which I don't believe will even help the labor market, by the way, in aggregate. Again, aggregate. No, that's a scary word. Just to help out, what, a few 100,000 people at most that are victims of structural unemployment? There are so much better ways to do this. In what world is a 10% tariff across the board, plus 50% on China, plus 20% on EU, 10% on UK, whatever, better than just implementing, say, a 5% VAT, a 10% VAT, value-added tax, like every other country does, and just distributing some money to workers in the form of welfare?
But that's not productive.
What do you mean that's
when
not?
When you put a tax on gains, you get less gain.
So I think a value-added tax would be certainly more productive than the system we have now.
No, see, those taxes would add an extra cost, and that would make the cost of the goods go up. So when you add a tax to something...
Well, no. So a value-added tax only taxes consumption. On the end of the consumer, it doesn't actually tax any business-to-business transactions. So you're only negatively affecting consumption. And again, I already told, obviously, I would say, raising tax... Wait, Tyler. We both agree. If you collect money from taxes, that might have, and use it to fund a judicial system that protects property owners, that is a pro-growth thing. Taxing carbon, taxing land value is a pro-growth thing. I'm in favor of doing things that are pro-growth. It is not at all hypocritical for me to say some taxes are pro-growth. That is fucking absurd.
Okay. I guess before we give it to Tiberius here, right? Just another question for all of you. I keep hearing that tariffs are going to protect the working class. They're going to bring jobs back, etc. At what point the tariffs stay in place? A year from now, 2 years from now, unemployment goes up. People can't find jobs. You can get it in this certain sector, sure. We add about 10,000 steel workers to America, but then we've lost hundreds of thousands from companies who can no longer afford to make their products, who consume steel, who use steel in their manufacturing, who use steel in their production of whatever product that they're going with. And at what point do we just admit the tariffs don't work, right? Can you give me an example of tariffs adding jobs net to a country?
Tyler, I can't hear you.
Huh?
Yeah, we can't hear you.
With Apple's $200 billion investment right now, they are building a plant in Texas for 22,000 jobs to make chips and centrifuges. They're also putting a training facility in Detroit to train
Are they doing that because of the tariffs?
Wait, no, Wick, please.
They said it was a factor,
This is the mind of a tariff defender. They are only capable of thinking in partial equilibrium. Only capable of thinking, guess what? Motherfucker, things have opportunity cost. Apple investing that money takes resources away from other sectors. Those resources would have otherwise been invested in something that is more productive, something that would likely provide more jobs, which guess what? That's why every empirical study, from Obama's tariffs on tires, from George Bush's tariffs on steel, from Trump's tariffs on steel, from the IMF doing a study of 151 countries over 50 years, says tariffs reduce employment in aggregate. Obviously, no one denies tariffs will shit.
We've already addressed this.
Why? No, Tyler, you will answer this. Yes. Tyler, you will answer this. Why then, when Wick said, give me an example of tariffs adding jobs on net, did you not provide an example of tariffs adding jobs on net? And you just said that you would agree tariffs don't add jobs on net.
Because tariffs generally don't add jobs on net. Yes, because they reduce the service sector.
Generally, give me an example of where they have for a
I just did, but he would cut me off. So generally, yes, you are correct. That doesn't mean every single anecdote fits your generalization. I just gave you a generalization where Apple was putting their plants in other countries. They were not coming to the U.S.
You can't
came to the U.S.
You don't know the opportunity cost of them doing so, correct?
I don't know that. I just have to go off of what they said. So do you have something that they said? Because when I looked, they said the tariffs were a factor. Do you have something they said that show they weren't?
I understand the tariffs could very well be a factor in the reason that I'm granting you the tariffs are the reason they came here. I don't know that to be true, but I'm granting you that. There's an opportunity cost for the resources used to build that plant.
The opportunity cost is they're not being built in Bangladesh, not the United States.
There are resources used to build that plant that otherwise probably would have gone to a more productive investment in the U.S. That is the
6 more
opportunity cost
restaurants, yeah.
I'm referring to.
Oh,
which
yeah,
could
6
very
more
well
restaurants.
have added more jobs.
Okay. We have more jobs than
Okay.
people in the United States. It's time to
$2
invest
from
in quality of jobs.
$2 from Deej Nuts to say Nonfon, you need a Snickers.
Yeah, for real. You just keep repeating the same thing over and over, even though
Because
it's being addressed.
your mind is trapped in
Yeah.
partial
Oh my God.
equilibrium.
No,
Your
GDP
mind
is
is
the
trapped in the
only-
I'd like
partial
to answer
equilibrium.
your question.
Tyler, I've already addressed that.
I didn't get a chance to respond. The only reason why you're saying these tariffs are not pro-growth is because you're ignoring a sector where they're actually helping us grow. You're ignoring any future outcome.
Wait, everyone, I am exactly right. His mind is trapped in partial equilibrium. His mind can't think outside of partial equilibrium. He's only considering one sector where they are pro-growth. No one is denying tariffs will shift investment from unprotected sectors to protected sectors.
To repeat the same talking point that you borrowed from
Because
somebody else.
you're repeating the same thing because your mind is trapped in partial equilibrium.
Gentlemen, I would like to answer Rick's question, and you guys have just been going back and forth.
As soon as
for
I go to
20
respond,
minutes.
you start shouting over me. So, like, you want me to respond to your comment. You're saying they're not pro-growth. That's you speculating. That's you using different studies of a different tariff that was different impact, saying these unparalleled, unprecedented tariffs are going to follow the same study of a 1938 tariff from some fucking anti-tariff firm like Cato. Kiss my ass with that shit, dude. At the end of the day, these are helping us grow. We see $3.5 trillion of investment, record numbers of investment in U.S. growth in the last couple of months. Almost all of them are citing the tariff and Trump's economic policy for the reason they are now investing in the United States instead of Taiwan, China, Bangladesh, fucking Vietnam, the Philippines. They're all coming here. I don't understand how you can explain this by just repeating the same one talking point over and over. I've addressed your point, and you just ignore the details.
No, just to be
All
clear,
right.
I think it's ambiguous that tariffs were even part of this. Apple cites the TSMC plant in Arizona, which was brought over as part of the CHIPS Act by Joe Biden, which was direct
Shut down.
investment, not tariffs. What do you mean it was shut down?
It's shut down. All the CHIPS Act plants, especially the one in Ohio, are currently not hiring anybody. I know 2 people in the pipe fitters union trying to get into those plants. They're currently not hiring because they're looking to see what's going on.
There might be a hiring freeze, but
Yeah, they're
the
shut down.
Arizona one is absolutely functioning. The Arizona one is not shut down. That's not true.
The Ohio one is. There's I know people
Explicitly what Apple
waiting.
cites in that investment.
I don't-
So
This is
I
the
don't see
Texas
why it-
plant.
Can I
It's
get
the
in on
Texas
this
plant. I'm
for a
talking
yeah,
about.
but they're using the chips from the Arizona plant and TSMC to fund
Okay.
those AI servers in Texas. So if
So-
that Arizona plant doesn't exist, then they're invested for nothing.
3
Why?
points.
Okay.
Their announcement.
No, number one, I don't know why it can't be both. Like we're making it where it's more cost competitive to build stuff at home. At the same time, we're paying people to build the factory here. So like I don't know why it can't be both. I don't think that's a fucking jump. Personally, when it comes to answering Wick's question, is it overall net? I can at least give you an entire industry where it absolutely has made jobs. Over the last 20 years, or not 20 years, excuse me.
I'm gonna
over the last
fucking
5
crash
years,
out. Does
we
he understand what the word net
quadrupled
means? Are you
US
fucking?
industrial spending, right? Construction spending. We are making more shit here. And that's not just in the fact that we're
That's
building.
subsidies, right?
It's got to be more than subsidies. We're talking something on the order of a factor of 4. And here's the crazy part, and I can't make this a one-to-one because it's a correlation conversation, right? Is that to answer your question, how long do we have to take this before we know if it worked or not? Is that I'd say you have to take this to 2030, and you have to hope that there's actually a Democrat in office and see how many of the tariffs stick. Because I'm going to argue this crazy idea that when one of the big things that actually started a mass industrialization here in the United States during the Biden administration was he didn't remove the damn tariffs, or at least he didn't remove quite a bit of them. And because of that is that you actually saw a lot of companies, not only because of COVID, but because those tariffs were here to stay, they did the math and they knew that it was worth building here in the United States and it was going to be bipartisan. So my thing is, it is one of those deals where we can't half-ass this. We have to go kind of full send on it, where if somebody pulls in these tariffs, we have to keep them. And we have to keep them for a while to actually show, yes, yes, Wall Street, yes, Main Street America, this is the new medium. This is the new, this is the new paradigm that you're going to have to work under. And by that time, that's when we can take a restock. If that's too long for people, totally understand. And if, there's an election lost and we go all the way the other way, I will totally eat that. What it will kind of go after is what our good friend Snail was getting at, where it's like, hey, are you screwing over people on the coast for people in the Midwest? Unfortunately, no. I'm screwing over people on the coast for the South, which I hate the Southerners, but let's look at who's reindustrializing. It's Texas, it's Louisiana, it's Alabama, it's South Carolina, and to some degree Georgia. The Midwest is actually fucking this up. To a large degree, we're not getting half the investment back that we should be getting, and part of that's our politics. But yeah, am I trying to do that? To some degree, yes, because here's the part that I'm not sold on. I'm not sold on the idea that screwing, the upper middle class and the upper class to where they have to take home a little less money, where I take home more, is a bad thing. In fact, it's weird. We seem to have the same goal, but we just have a completely different way of going about it.
Just to be clear, we disagree that this policy is doing that, because I'm saying
I agree with that, but our goal's the same,
over.
right?
Yeah, maybe. Well, now it is apparently, because people were hammering Kamala for her quote unquote wealth tax. People were hammering Democrats in general, saying they're bad on the economy because of tax increases, when like 90% of the time you dig into it, it's only a tax increase for people making over like $250,000, $400,000. We need all these new tax brackets to tax that wealth and that income. But every time the Democrats try and propose something, they're, lambasted as evil, economy bad people, and, nobody.
Economy bad, commies, the whole 9 yards. I totally get it.
Just real quick.
Yeah.
$10 from Admiral Gibbs. This is why you need an actual conservative. Not once have we mentioned record high beef prices or the agriculture industry booming due to the tariffs. Does Nonfon not believe food production is important? And then $2 from Deej Nuts to say Phineas hasn't been the same since Ferb voted MAGA. Thank you for the $10 and thank you for the $2 respectively. Look, I'm going to jump in here a bit because you guys keep citing these numbers of 20,000 jobs here, 10,000 jobs there. But
Sure.
We know from the steel tariffs in 2018, we did gain some steel production jobs, but we lost jobs, again, as a direct result of the tariffs in other industries across the board that dwarfed the jobs gains. So my question would be, how many jobs are we going to lose? Not just how many did we gain from the plant that you're citing or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if I grant you that those were because of the tariffs that we're getting those jobs, my question would be, how many are we going to lose because of the tariffs? And if that number isn't a positive, which it never, and I want to be clear about this, never in history of any country that the time we've been studying this, has it been so, right? Well, what are we doing?
I'll try to answer your
Borrowing
question.
from Peter to pay Paul.
Potentially. So I'll put it in this regard, because I've at least tried to study both sides of this argument to understand who's right. Given the time frame that I gave you, right? So we're going to 2030 with this, right? If I'm wrong and my opponents are correct, is that I'm thinking it's somewhere on the neighborhood of 2 to 2.5 million jobs that you're putting at risk, because it's just straight inefficiency that you're shoving into the market because you're adding a bunch of taxes, and you're not really getting anything out of it unless the government starts throwing out a shitload of social spending from the money they get from the tariffs, which those should not work very well because they're regressive. On the other side, if I'm correct, you'll get more jobs, but proving that is a pain in the fucking balls, because I told you earlier, right? I can say that we have a lot more construction jobs, but did we lose other jobs in response to that?
We did.
Maybe.
In 2018, we did. In 2011, with the Obama tariffs, we did. When the Bush steel tariffs went in, I forget the date of that, the year, we did. Like, every single time, we have. So why is this time different?
Well, here's the problem. Is that in reference to 2018 and only in the year 2018? Or is that reference to, hey, what was the downstream effects a couple years later when the market readjusted to this?
Both of them cost net jobs. We have studies over like 50-year periods over multiple different countries that show tariffs cost jobs. Like,
yeah,
you're not going to find any support. Yeah, so they're all just lying.
I've seen the studies. Like, I mean, if you want to keep repeating the same old argument, you can. Here's my general problem here, Wick, that I have to try to dissect here is that how do you prove that we lost these jobs versus we lost jobs versus what we made jobs? And it's not that you can't just go head counting. We definitely do that.
Yeah,
but
there's an answer to that. Companies will say, hey, we're doing this layoff because we can no longer afford to make our product at this price point because we now have a tariff that is costing us more to bring the raw materials we use to produce. So we do have to cut our labor force in order to keep our profits, right? And they'll say that. And then when they say that, we just jot it down, we make a note of it, and then we compare it to the companies who say we're investing because now the tariffs will protect us and let us to sell our goods internally, and we make a little more profit, so now we can afford to hire.
So we're only comparing first order effects. Right. So we're only comparing first order effects instead of second and tertiary order effects.
I mean, there are other studies to compare the other effects, but I'm talking about just the net.
Yeah, like so. This is my entire crux of my argument. If you look at the primary sources, I totally agree with you. Tariffs are a disaster, and this is where I push away from. Excuse me, my good friend Tyler here is that I think when it comes to the secondary, more in particularly the tertiary, I think those are a lot more dubious at best. Is that you're trying to find a direct input, a direct change in the input calculations for why something has happened and looking at it downstream, not only years later, but also in entirely different sectors from what it was originally targeting.
Well,
this is why I have a... Sorry, let me finish this real quick. This is actually why I have a huge problem with the, hey, let's tax the rich people and give everything to the poor kind of mentality. On paper, it should fucking work. And yet, for some reason, whenever we try to tax rich people more, even when we are successful, it doesn't really change anything. When we pay people more in wealth benefits, because we do have liberal states that do this, it doesn't really change that much. I think we get lost in the weeds when it comes to a lot of these tertiary effects. I really do.
So $2 from Tesical Johnson, Canadian dollars though, so you know, says, is recession good for the economy? Well, thank you for the $2. I don't think we need to answer this, but my point here is, and I'll let Nonfon get, and then I know Tyler wants to say some stuff. My point here is that outside of very specific targeted tariffs, where for national security reasons you don't want you want to keep some stuff in house, for example, or another possible scenario is you have an industry that is budding that you haven't set up before that again, usually for national security reasons, you want to do in-house. Fair, right? Maybe we could have a conversation on that where we're willing to take the hit because we get other tertiary benefits. But I've yet to see any country, and I'm talking about any country, not just the US, have better economic results for, I'm not just talking for the rich, I'm talking for everyone because of tariffs. I've never seen it. Ever. So I'm asking for an example.
Yeah, this one's a little hard. And I'm going to say that there's two reasons why I think that this actually
I just want a country, just a country name.
I think
like
the United States... I'm going to give you a hot take.
Tariffs in place for 30 years have been growing to maybe the number 2 economy in the world. Like something like that. Like if they've had tariffs in place for 30 years and they grew into the number 2 economy in the world. Like that kind of example.
So
do you think that was because of tariffs?
I think it was no, I don't think there was one single factor to explain the growth of entire nation.
That
helped.
Really? Explain.
Yes. This is one of the manufacturing hubs of the world. Why did the manufacturing see fit to go there? Why did, when Trump threatened tariffs to Canada, did Canada's number 2 food producer say they had to move to the U.S. because they wouldn't be able to afford to import here? Like, you have tariffs, tariff move manufacturing around. That's the whole point I've been trying to make. And it's like, we're talking about like, but there's more jobs. Like, if you have 250 jobs that all pay minimum wage and are part-time or seasonal, and we have 8 million more jobs than people, which we have right now, people looking for a job
pays.
A lot more than a service job. I think 40% higher. 40% higher on average.
Just real quick, all jobs in the average of all jobs, at least in the U.S., like manufacturing, pays more than manufacturing jobs. So that includes, I guess, agriculture as well. But again,
which is also something you would get rid of if you wanted to just let these tariffs go into play. We wouldn't protect our agriculture as well. Like, why not just go to 100% service industry?
I mean,
yeah, everyone learn to code.
The way, please. I mean, first of all, there's plenty of farming subsidies, subsidies and tariffs that I don't support.
Why? But why wouldn't we want to just go to 100% service industry? Can you answer that? Like, why wouldn't we just let all of our industry go overseas and just import everything.
So like literally 100%, you'd have national security concerns over that. But I mean, like I don't see a problem with being a mainly service sector economy. Every single developed economy has followed the same pattern of a rising MES curve that eventually falls.
I want to wear the sneakers. I don't want to sew them and build them.
True.
I want to wear them. I don't want to screw the tiny screws in my iPhone. I want to use my iPhone.
Get your trickle down, babies. Now, what happens when, let's say, you're the number
trickle down? I'm the one pissing all over them.
Let's say most of your imports for gas and energy are coming from a country called Russia, and then Russia invades one of the countries that's part of your union, and you can't sanction them because if you sanction them, it'll hurt your own economy.
We are one of the most highly energy producing nations in the fucking world right now.
I'm talking about the EU. I'm talking about the EU.
That's
what
a
the
national
EU did.
security justification. No one is going to deny that there was some national security justification.
Rid of nuclear.
Oh, yeah. So you're again like
wait. No one, Tyler.
It's cheaper. Why not just offshore your energy? It's cheaper,
Tyler,
right?
No one is going to deny that there are some national security justifications for industrial policy, and that might even include tariffs sometimes. What we're going to deny is that that's an overall net benefit for the economy. It just means it's good for national security. And also, I think broad-based tariffs probably undermine national security because they hurt manufacturing. I'll give just one example. The semiconductor shit that Biden did, they were hurt by this because they rely on specialized equipment that can only be made in the Netherlands, okay?
So when China devalues its currency,
wait, hold on. I can reply to that. But like these semiconductor companies have to buy equipment from the Netherlands, which is our ally, by the way, who doesn't really tariff us. They are hurt. A strategic industry is hurt by the 20% tariffs placed on the Netherlands. That's not a good thing. That's a horrible thing. Again, you have to think in aggregate.
All we can do is go against the EU. We can't put tariffs directly on the Netherlands. Sorry, it doesn't work out that way. They're in the union.
The Netherlands is in the EU, so I understand.
The EU?
What's that?
Yeah,
because they tariff us. We're trying to get the tariffs dropped off at the very least. They were tariffing our cars at 10%, right?
Like 2%. That's also not a good justification, by the way.
10% they were tariffing our cars. We put a 2.5% and they dropped it to 2.5%.
Why are we talking about cars? I'm just talking about on average.
Because he asked a question.
I'm talking about
cars. That's the car industry that we want to bring from the EU back to the US. Because if you've been to the EU, their cars are totally different. So, they have different roads. They have different everything. They
can still buy US. We buy EU cars here all the time. We have German cars all at the end.
Will literally not fit in EU streets.
We can make versions of them. We can make versions of them for the EU if we wanted to.
We can.
That all being said,
that's the point.
That's because there's fucking tariffs on them. We can't afford to sell there. We're not going to redesign
the factories.
Hold on. To quote Barack Obama, Korea has hundreds of thousands of cars here. We have less than 5,000 there because they put massive tariffs on us. They don't let our car companies come in and compete. That's why. That's money that was going into the U.S. dollar, into the U.S. worker, into the U.S. business owner's pockets that now goes into another company's pocket. They turn around, they reinvest it. They reinvest it into stocks or into bonds or things that they can make more money from. It's not going back into the hands of the worker. It's going to the richest 1%. We're funneling money upwards. It's proven in every way.
Just to be clear, Hyundai literally has production plants in the USA, in Alabama, and in Georgia. So I think that's not quite what we're expecting.
$10. We also have auto manufacturing plants that manufacture parts that we sell to Canada and our offshore auto industry plants, right? That are actually going to be closing down because they can't afford to sell it anymore because of the reciprocal tariffs, right?
I'd have to just respond to everybody. I never got to my actual point.
$10, real quick, and then I can let you respond, and you can have the mic again. All outlets are saying that the agricultural industry is about to be squeezed. Also, beef prices going up will hurt the consumer, and people will spend less in beef industry long term. Thank you for the $10. I really appreciate you. Okay, Tyler, mic's yours.
So 11% of our GDP is based off of our export, meaning 11% at the end of the day goes out to the entire rest of the world. At worst, we can see an 11% reduction. At the end of the day, though, China is giving us 18%. So this is going to hurt China more than it's going to hurt us. But why would we do that? Why would we want to punish China? They've been devaluing their currency. They've been making crap steel that they've been using to go around tariffs, find loopholes in trade policy to flood our markets with that crappy steel. Now, if Amazon did that, if Amazon dropped its prices artificially low to put its competitors out of business, that's illegal in the United States. But we let them get away with it on a world stage because we're so tied into their economy. They have 18% of their economy goes to the U.S. We're so tied in with them right now, we cannot accurately punish them the same way the EU can't accurately punish Russia for invading a country. Like, we cannot have these ties with these nations. So if you're acknowledging we can't get rid of them because of national security, you're admitting the problem exists. Well, I'm telling you real practical shit that's been going on with China for 20 years that's been completely unpunished. I'm showing you real practical shit that's been going on with Russia for now 16 years that's finally starting to get punished. Finally, they're the number 2 exporter of oil and gas into Europe. They're still only giving them 40%, but they're the number 2 behind the United States. It took years, decades, and canceling pipelines and blowing up pipelines in order to get that because we allowed these people to make these deals with the devil to import all this cheap shit from our enemies that don't have human rights, climate concerns, or any of the Western values we have because it's a little bit cheaper. And then when it bites us in the ass, it's like, why would we change? And it's fucking stupid, and it's the reason we can't go after China.
$10 from Zephyrhash, and I'm going to give it to Nonfon to respond to that, then to Tiberius. $10 from Zephyrhash says, I tried to buy a Ford in India. Same price range as a Hyundai for that model. It's the quality of Ford versus the quality of Hyundai that caused me to buy a Hyundai. You cannot tariff away quality and service. Thank you for that $10. Nonfon, you can respond to his points. Then we're going to give it to Tiberius.
Okay, just going back to the EU for a second so I can respond to that. The justification for tariffs on the EU is not even that they're tariffing our cars. Because again, the formula that they used is just the trade deficit divided by imports. This is like total unbelievable incompetence. Like they want balanced trade. Trump is openly suggesting that they want balanced trade. And also, Trump and Peter Navarro have both suggested that value-added taxes, which are a trade-neutral tax, are trade distortions. Peter Navarro wrote a piece for the Financial Times literally like 10 minutes before this panel started, and he considers value-added taxes a trade distortion, even though they're not. So how, I want to answer, how on earth do you expect Trump to negotiate with these countries to reduce their trade barriers when they are considering the value-added tax a trade barrier? You're muted.
You're muted. We can't hear you.
The exact way he's doing it right now with well over 50 countries coming and calling the United States to get them dropped, but you're conflating different tariffs. You're conflating the intent behind one tariff for the actions of another. I told you there's 3 different tariff policies based off of 2 different laws. But like you're taking the reasoning for one and applying it to another. When I broke that down,
all of them except for there were tariffs added earlier on like steel and things, but those were all used with the same formula and the same justification that we want balanced trade, right?
Yeah, the way that they came up, I gave you that point. The way they came up with the reciprocal is a little bit stupid. But at the end of the day, there's, I think, what Tiberius said.
Can you provide me a list of these countries, by the way? The 50 countries you keep citing. Can you provide a list?
That document I linked in chat is with all my citations in it, is so we can avoid that specific question. It's in there, page 5 or so. So, fuck, I got derailed there. But yeah, no, with Canada as well, I think there's something more going on. He can't say what it is. It's abuse of power. At the end of the day, it's abuse of power. He's lying for the reason he's doing some of these tariffs. I have to concede that because otherwise I'd be lying. It absolutely is. And for those ones, you have a right to be mad about them.
Okay, I see a link to 50 nations have reached out to Forbes article, but that doesn't cite the nations. You do have a list of 7 nations here.
7 nations are the ones I found independently.
Yeah. I mean, so again, I'm asking specifically for the what 50? Like there's 7.
I couldn't tell you offhand. The White House just says 50 nations.
Okay, so the White House said it. That's your source?
I understand that. Yes. I'm not denying that countries have reached out. To clarify, my question is, how the fuck do we expect these negotiations to go when Donald Trump is coming in with the position that a value-added tax is a trade distortion when these countries all rely on value-added taxes?
I don't know the fine details and nuances of what they're going to be discussing behind closed doors. I can't answer that question for you. Like, I don't know.
I mean, just like for the audience and, everyone, almost every country in the world has a value-added tax. Europe relies on value-added taxes. In some European countries, it's like 40%. It's just a way to tax consumption. It is a trade-neutral tax. If Trump is going into these negotiations expecting them to lower their value-added tax, that negotiation is getting nowhere because these countries are not going to lower their value-added tax, nor should they, because, again, it is a trade-neutral tax.
I'm sure that there's a way that they can worry about that in, like, I'm not sure, like, value-added tax is set in stone. You can't do anything for it in trade negotiations. I think this is speculating a little bit past our merit here. We don't know what they're actually talking about behind closed doors. We'll just have to see.
Do you know what a value-added tax is?
Generally, yeah.
Can you explain it?
What he just said was an accurate enough summary.
I want you
for
to
me.
explain it.
It's a consumption tax. Generally, for a consumption tax that turns into a government piggy bank for whatever you want to use it for. The different countries do different things with it.
Okay. Tiberius, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of things. I'll just hit the VAT thing real quick. I'm not going to get into like what it is or why. I just would say that we probably should issue one. Doesn't have to be very big, but it would very much do well to cover roads and bridges. Moving goods and services from A to B is a really good idea if you want to tax that, especially when shit's going to EVs. The gas tax needs to be expunged. Number two, to answer your question, my good friend Wick, is that you're like, hey, where can we cite really strong examples of where tariffs are good? Problem. We don't have a really good case study. And I think this is kind of the issue here. But largely since the post-imperial or the post-imperial era, where you basically had all the first world nations stop killing each other, tariffs have been on
about the 1800s.
No, I'm talking about since World War II.
Okay, since World War II, gotcha.
Yeah, I consider World War II the end of the imperial era.
Okay,
but anyway,
I was just trying to get the dates correct.
Yeah,
After
gotcha.
World War II. Gotcha.
So number one is that the general norm has been less tariffs, right? So having a goods like citing criteria for like when it's good, when it's bad, kind of hard to find because we haven't really been doing it. And I know Nonfon and company will probably say, well, this is a great example of their successes, but I don't necessarily agree. Largely, the first world had a increase of standard of living and also an increase of productivity and consumption all at the same time until about 1975. And that's when the third world started getting involved. This is where it's not just an American thing or a Canadian thing, but it's also French, British, German. Like, we're having consistent issues to where if you're not building shit or you're importing a shitload of stuff from other countries, you're all seeing the wealth inequality in our countries increase. We're all seeing a massive economic bleed-off effects for people that we don't really like. I'm really with Tyler on this one. We have too many T's in this conversation. But I'm really with Tyler on this one. Why are we emboldening our enemies by trading with them because we say it's a few good extra dollars? I will take the political hit. I'll take the economic hit to not trade with China or Cuba or Venezuela because they're cunts. Particularly, fuck the Saudis, by the way. When it comes to where we are, is that I think, unfortunately, we're only in a special place where the United States can even try this. And granted, economic theory, if people do not want to risk this, I don't blame them. But the United States is a $25 trillion consumer market. We basically are the Hoover of sucking up all of the goods throughout the domestic markets on the entire planet.
The Hoover? Okay.
Yeah, the Hoover vacuum. The Hoover vacuum,
I get what
right?
you're saying. It's just
anyway,
an unfortunate comparison to a particular president, but fair enough.
Yeah, fair. Anyway, if you actually wanted to test this by saying, hey, look, you have an innate consumer demand that's already within your country, you want to see how much your supply can domestically handle it and see the effects, the only country that I think can even take a crack shot at this is the United States. So yes, unfortunately, outside of saying I think there's some evidence to support that Japan has managed its decline since 1990 because of some of its tariffs, which is a whole other conversation, because of the fact that Europe is an old folks' home, and everybody else is largely a net exporter, they can't try this, but we can, because we are the importer, because we buy everybody else's shit, is that we can actually say, hey, what is the economic repercussions of us building our own stuff? Here's the other side of that conversation. If we do this, and I'm right, the United States would be richer, and you, the average person, would have a bigger paycheck, and the rich people would have a lesser paycheck. But anyone that we cut out of that system we said we weren't buying from would be poor and destitute. And that looks like what Trump is actually trying to do with Canada.
It if every economist is wrong about comparative advantage, if every economist is wrong about all the empirical studies, because you're absolutely wrong, we have studied these issues. There are a ton of natural experiments on which we can study the effects of tariffs on countries, on employment, on output, all those things. Then America will be richer. Yeah, great argument, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I totally understand that I'm literally the 3% that's like in favor that global warming isn't real. Like, I totally understand where I'm kind of like coming from here. But it's really, really fucking weird to me that I hear so many people talk in the left hand about how economic inequality is getting worse and how like all these trade systems are just more beneficial. And then when we actually see in the positive, not aggregate, in your face fucking effects, is that the average person's getting poorer. The average person's having a lot harder time affording shit, and the only argument you actually have is in the aggregate. In the aggregate. Bitch, I don't fucking believe your goddamn aggregate anymore. I think you're a bunch of liars.
Every time I talk about the effects of tariffs on these things, on affordability, you go to, well, we're going to help some people in these certain sectors. Oh, you're going to hurt people in other sectors. You're going to make everyone on net worse off.
I want to hurt people who are rich. I'm specifically making it to where you're going to have to pay more to poor fucking people because they're building your fucking shit. I am willing to take that goddamn gamble. And if it fucks over other people, you know what? I'll have to eat it.
You're hurting other poor people.
I really doubt that.
You really doubt there's an opportunity cost to it. But regardless, again, I'm not convinced.
We can't hear you, Tyler.
Okay.
Still can't hear you, Tyler.
I'm not convinced.
Snail's trying to get in.
I respect
Snail,
it.
go ahead. Snail, your time to shine, buddy.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, I just think it's ridiculous because tariffs don't just hurt rich people. I wish that was true. You're hurting everyone else who doesn't work in those sectors. Everybody else who doesn't work in those sectors. That's a small part of the economy. Everybody else is going to be worse off. Only those people are going to be better. That might be really good to you in the Rust Belt, and you might say, oh, look, all my neighbors are richer. I can go outside, and, everyone looks happy. Unicorns, rainbows are shining. Everything looks great. That's just not how it's going to work for everybody else who doesn't work in those specific industries.
If that's the case, hold on a second. Hold on. Let me hit this, Tyler. If that's the case, why do we see positive effects from increasing minimum wage?
Because demand for positive effects where demand for labor tends to be pretty inelastic. The supply of labor also tends to be pretty inelastic. So it's just like, and there sometimes is monopsony in the labor market. So sometimes there are positive efficiency effects from raising the minimum wage. And in cases where there isn't monopsony, demand for labor tends to be pretty inelastic anyway. So it just ends up having a redistributional effect.
So what I'm wanting to do is I'm literally giving you a different effect. I'm giving you a different cause that would do the same thing to the labor market, and yet somehow that's stupid and ass backwards. Like I don't get this, guys. I don't.
No. I'm not convinced it would do the same thing for the labor market. Again, also you cited empirical evidence that minimum wages just don't have a big impact on unemployment. All the empirical evidence suggests that tariffs do decrease employment. So I don't know why you trust I don't know why you're trusting the empirical evidence around minimum wage, but not any of the empirical evidence that I could send you about the effects of tariffs. Because it does the same thing, and yet
somehow, some way,
what do you mean it does the same thing?
They do completely off of.
Wait, what do you mean it does the same thing?
If you have tariffs, and you have to have them high enough, and this is actually one of the key issues that we keep having, is that for some reason people want to put out like a 5% tariff or a 10% tariff to where it's just like, yeah, it's going to cost more to import the item, but not actually be cost efficient to make it here or to make it within your domestic market. Now we're actually putting those kind of tariffs on the board to a large degree, where it was to 25% on washing machines, and now we're talking about like 40% on cars. It's like, yeah, now it is going to be cost effective. And so, yeah, I'm kind of this idea. It's like, yeah, with your empirical evidence, we haven't really crossed the line here to make it where it's like, yeah, now we've done the bookwork, now we've done the math, and the math actually says with this high of tariffs, it's now worth putting American jobs back to work.
Just to be clear, Trump didn't do that math either, right? Because those tariffs have nothing to do with what you're saying. They're just completely ridiculous. So
wait, which
nobody
tariffs?
did that math yet. The Trump tariffs, the Liberation Day tariffs, reciprocal
So-
tariffs. We're tariffing countries that we have trade surpluses with, that have no industry that we're trying to compete with. So that's not doing what you're saying, right?
I don't
It's more doing
disagree
what I'm saying.
I don't disagree that like the reciprocal tariffs have been kind of half-assed, 100,000%. But what I am 100% on board with is the fact that these aren't cheapskate tariffs. These aren't literally just, oh, hey, here's 5% here, 10% here. This is This is literally swinging the hammer at something. We are going to see effects. Now, granted, could I be wrong? Yes, I am not the Omega God-given fucking non-fan who just somehow knows all the things and always trusts, just because somebody else said it, I'm going to go with them. Yeah, when it comes down to it, is that I do think that we're wrong in this. I have a lot of
every
different
other
reasons wrong.
person who's touched that stove says it's hot, but me, I'm different.
Well, I think we're changing the conditions. That's the key to my argument here, is that, one, I think the United States is special, so comparing us to a lot of other countries is kind of foolhardy. Number two is that we're not going to be doing something that is incredibly tiny, where it's like, yeah, here's 5% or 10%, enjoy your higher priced products, fucking eat shit. It's actually, oh, wait, I've done the math now. I can actually make products here for a profit. And so, yeah, I want to see the downstream effects of this. I'm not Giga Chad enough to say I'm absolutely right, but I have a feeling people like Nonfan are going to look really ridiculous if this shit sticks for 6 years.
Okay, $5.
How do we know?
Wait. Yeah.
$5, and then I'll let you respond, Nonfon, because you were called ridiculous, okay? Gonna let you answer that. $5 from Nasser Gamers to say, you're not hurting the FANG-level rich as they'll further consolidate. You're hitting the mom and pop rich that can't. And that is another point, right? One of the problems with tariffs is that every time we have tariffs, people will go to the president at the time to get exemptions from the tariffs. And a lot of companies do this. A lot of industries do this. The agricultural industry will often do this. They'll get bailed out, basically, by being immune to these tariffs, and they'll raise heck, in other words. So you know who has the power to do that? Corporations, the big guys, the mom and pop stores, the middle class, the people who are just trying to start a business, they don't. So what this ends up doing is it helps the corporate and it hurts the middle class small business owners every time. And we see this every time.
Tariffs do?
Why is it different now?
Tariffs do that? I don't think that's what tariffs do.
Yes, that's absolutely what tariff happens.
So when Joe Biden slapped a 100% tariff on China to get them to stop putting their EV cars on
EVs on a specific industry.
Just get them to stop dumping their EVs.
Wrong.
To get them to dump our EVs in our market.
How many electric vehicle companies have suddenly shot up in America?
Multiple. They're growing through the roof right now.
I think the EV tariffs were
almost every car company is outputting more EV because of that. And the same thing with a plant in Arizona said they're going to start outputting 50% more trucks because of the tariff. Like the amount of U.S.-based manufacturing, we're going to see an increase. Okay, but like you're saying,
small middle-class business owners.
If they're U.S.-based corporations, the ones that actually have the balls of the U.S., why we're not putting a tariff on them? We're putting a tariff on foreign companies.
My problem here is if I want to start a new company that uses steel, let's use steel as an example, and I'm going to make a widget, and this widget, I need to buy steel to make the widget, right? I need it to make my equipment that manufactures the widget, right? All these things. If that goes up and I don't have the same connections, and so Amazon, who's got an exemption, suddenly doesn't have to pay the 20% to import it from China, but I do because I don't have the same connections as Amazon, I'm not going to be able to compete.
Okay, so let's just drop the sanctions.
That happens.
Climate policy. Let's drop fucking work. Why aren't we talking about dropping workers' protection? Why are we talking all the things that drive the U.S. labor costs up?
Dumb.
Hold on. All the things that drive the cost of labor up in the United States. You don't want to cut those. You want to leave those in place. You just want to get people to take advantage of loopholes. So I got a couple things. I'm finally able to get in here. Nonfon, your point
doesn't even make sense. No, stop, because that doesn't even make sense. This thing also does something bad or something that might be bad, but I can give you specific reasons why we want OSHA, for example, and how before OSHA it costs the workers much more in terms of health costs.
I agree.
And things like that.
Yep.
Whereas
Whereas
with tariffs, you cannot give me a benefit. Not overall.
Not overall. Yeah, overall we're going to have less jobs. It doesn't matter that they're lesser paying or part-time or shittier. You're just looking at the fact that there's less jobs.
It increases wages.
I have. Absolutely.
You haven't substantiated any of that.
I just showed you factory and manufacturing.
You gave me an anecdote.
Manufacturing and
me.
production are 40% higher than the service industry. What do you want? What do you
think
want?
do you think it's the service industry jobs that are going to be lost?
Yes, the 83% of jobs we have in service are the ones that are going to go away. Yes.
Some of it will be that,
insane to say.
Most of it will be that. A large amount will be that. So, you're making the same point. The tax cut point. Remember how Trump cut everyone's taxes, but it disproportionately affected the 1%. So it was a tax cut for the rich. You guys are making the same fucking argument here. It disproportionately hurts the 1% when we tariff.
I don't believe that to be true again.
No,
because
stop. First of all, the 1%, they might have one less house. They might have to sell one of their 30 Porsches, okay? The people who get their jobs laid off that aren't the 1% ain't going to be able to feed their fucking family.
Excess jobs.
We can't do that now.
Hypothetical scenario. We have 9 million excess jobs. When is the time we say, okay, we have enough in the number amount, let's raise the quality? I think when you have 9 million more jobs than people employed, that's the time to do it.
Okay. Could I? Am I good now?
It's not going to work, though.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So, Economist Wick, I don't care what your prediction is. Answer my point.
You haven't made one.
I just did. We have 9 million extra jobs than people working. When is your time to say we should worry less about the number of jobs and more about the quality of pay?
We should worry about the quality of pay, but do you think tariffs are the best way to do that? I do not. It's like, if we have a crime problem, your solution is let's just shoot them all.
It's not the best way to do it. It's a factor.
There's a fire. Let's bring in the flood. Let's blow up the dam and to cut off the fire that's burning in this one house. Let's blow up the whole dam so the whole fucking city floods.
Like,
to stop this one fire.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, let's completely stop using fucking gasoline to stop this climate fire. That's something you're for. That's something you voted for.
No
it's like
for that.
I have never voted for stopping fossil fuel production.
Yes,
I live in Pennsylvania. I voted for
completely phasing out fossil fuel. It was a massive reason we saw prices of gas spike before inflation.
We were producing more gas than ever under.
It doesn't matter. That doesn't refute my point.
Facts don't fucking matter. Of course, facts don't matter to this guy. Of course, this matters to this guy.
I'm literally giving you.
I can refute.
Go ahead. I've cooked you enough. Follow up.
It's not going to work.
Power this bitch.
That's all you said.
Nonfon, go ahead.
Look, okay, so there's a couple of points out there that I have to respond to now. One, I guys already gave you the reasons why it doesn't seem like trade reduces wages. Trade makes people specialize in industries where we are more productive, and therefore they get paid higher wages. There's good reasons in theory to believe this, and there seems to be empirical evidence that trade increases income as well, and trade's benefits are a lot of times disproportionately felt by poor people who buy a lot of imported goods. It is good for poor people. That is my position. Obviously, by the way, I already explained to you, Tyler, there are certain taxes are pro-growth. The reason I'm in favor of a lot of these carbon taxes or whatever is because I believe they are pro-growth. I don't believe tariffs are pro-growth. There are plenty of ways to raise revenue that is pro-growth. There are also social objectives that we might want to achieve. We might want to make the quality work better, and that might involve some deadweight loss in some reduction in output in exchange for that social goal. And there are some cases where that trade-off is worth it, some cases where it's not. I think it might be the case, it might actually be the case that OSHA is pro-growth because workers stay healthier and are therefore more productive. But I'll grant you that worker protections are negative growth. It still could be worth it for achieving the social goal. I don't believe there is a good social goal here for these tariffs. So obviously, I think that. And also, one last thing I want to answer.
You guys' feelings. You're telling me I'm the one not bringing facts, and all you're saying is I don't believe it.
What do you mean? We have no here. This is better. We have no good reason to believe it. I have data that shows that I provided a theory. I provided the comparative advantage theory, which it indicates that people will specialize in what they are more productive in, and therefore that's going to increase their wages. And there's evidence as well. I can send you studies that trade increases income, and there's evidence as well. I can send you studies that, guess what, poor people buy more imported goods and therefore benefit disproportionately from trade. There are evidence for all those things. There's no good reason to believe otherwise. I also want to know, I was told I would look ridiculous if these tariffs stuck around for 6 years. I want to know, what is the outcome where I look ridiculous?
Oh, the outcome if this sticks around, and if I'm correct, is that we're going to see probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 6% wage growth every single year for the next until 2030, if not longer. Because we have more people that are going to be investing within building these jobs that people need. 2 points here that I want to make following this up. Number one, Wick was talking about, hey, you know, are we eating jobs across the board, yada, yada, yada. We have more people employed than we ever have at this current point. It's about 160 million people who are working. As of that, we have about 8.3 million people who are in construction jobs. That's the highest it's ever been. So, like, we are seeing growth in this sector, and we are seeing growth in the overall economy. So, like, there's a level where it's like, hey, you know, if the first round of tariffs that we're already dealing with is trading jobs, someone's got to find me the sector that they're eating it out of. And if it's taken out of some shitty service sector jobs that people are coming from into to construction, fucking win, baby, all day. I will happily advocate that these people are getting paid more. Second of all, cheaper goods are not always better. I am tired of this fucking argument because it is bullshit. Stop giving me cheap Chinese vacuums that break after 6 months. Yes, I will take the American one that's 30% more in cost, but actually lasts 5 fucking years. You can talk about it with sneaker shoes, general appliances, the whole 9 yards. I can go into depth when it comes to just your average tools that you buy, is that if you get something like Right Tools, which are made in the United States, they're a higher quality, they're usually warranted, and they actually will endure damage. You'll have the fucking half the shitty ones that are made in China. They'll break on you when you're trying to torque a wrench. Where's the value in that?
Okay,
cool, I got my fucking cheaper wrench, but I have to replace it now consistently.
I've had a lot of American companies that are also trash, right? Like, fair. But there are a lot of American products that, again, there's a reason that other countries don't buy American products is because the quality isn't there. That's not with every product, obviously. That's not with every company, obviously. But that's why we allow free trade so that consumers can choose. And we don't have the government pick winners and losers like we do in a tariff situation. But Nonfon, go ahead.
Do you guys have evidence that trade increases wages in aggregate? If you send me some shit about partial equilibrium thinking, okay, I'm going to crash the fuck out.
No, I'm not trying to challenge you on the GDP argument at all.
Then why do you guys keep bringing up this point about wages? You're like, I want American workers to be paid more. So do I, motherfucker. That you realize GDP is equal to income.
It's not one-to-one.
No, it's not.
Yes,
That's
it is.
the fucking take I hate.
No, GDP is literally equal to income. Look at everyone.
Yes, but it's not.
Everyone in the audience, go to ChatGPT. Ask, is GDP equal to aggregate income?
This is
That's Reaganite economics.
I don't give a fuck if our
GDP economics.
I don't give a fuck if our GDP is 10 times greater if that means all that 10 times went to the top 1%. I don't give a flying fuck.
Okay.
That doesn't help me. That doesn't help my neighbor. Fuck off.
I've already told you that I believe trade is also beneficial to the poor. More beneficial to the poor than protectionism.
I heard you.
That's not trickle down. That's a direct benefit to poor people. First of all, even if it was trickle down, if the evidence supports it, then call me a trickle down or whatever the fuck. But I don't believe it's trickle down. It is a direct benefit for poor people to specialize where they are more productive and therefore earn higher wages. It is a direct benefit to poor people to not tax them with a regressive tax. It is a direct benefit to poor people to let them import goods.
You're right. You're right. I agree. You're right.
So that's not trickle down. How is that trickle down?
These generous corporations that are making all this money just naturally pass it on to their workers, right? Because they're just, good people.
Do you disagree that wages are largely determined by productivity?
Hold on. Because if that's the case, why don't we just get rid of the corporate tax?
No.
First of all, yes, get rid of the corporate tax, wholly based.
100%.
Second of all,
no other taxes to take its place. Just get rid of it.
I support replacing the corporate tax with something called a DBCFT, but
no. Just get rid of it. It's more productive to the economy.
So I would say it might have pro-productivity benefits getting rid of corporate tax, but I would say the loss in revenue and increasing deficit spending would probably but
you just told me gas tax is pro-growth. Taxing the number one source of fuel in the world is pro-growth to you?
Did I don't know if I said a gas tax. I don't think I said a gas tax is pro-growth. I said pro-growth. When did I say gas tax is pro-growth?
He said a VAT tax.
He said gas tax. The gas. Maybe you did say that. Maybe I just said the carbon tax.
Yeah, I might have said a
Carbon tax,
VAT.
carbon
Tax credits.
I said carbon tax is
Carbon.
pro-growth. I do believe carbon tax
Yeah.
is pro-growth because carbon.
So taxing the output of carbon for the biggest industries
Hold on,
in the
do you not
world.
understand his argument with the
I get
carbon
it.
tax?
It's
I
like
don't know if I
externality.
agree with the argument, but I
It-
understand it, right?
It makes companies spend more money so they can get better output of whatever.
Yeah, but it's a
byproduct that
negative.
they
It
have.
stops them from emitting
Get
carbon,
taxed on
a
the
negative
consumer.
externality.
Yeah. I agree, it does, but it doesn't pass it. They pass that cost on to consumers. It makes it cost. That
Doesn't mean
negatively
it's
hurts
not
poor
negative
people.
growth.
Government policy hurts poor people. Are you going to get rid of it?
No. So
No.
Are you, if you're saying if
You're
we
not. You're just saying the juice isn't worth the squeeze. You are for policy across the board that hurts poor people because you think you're
No.
worth it. But then we have to believe that in this one instance, just because you read an economist like that plagiarized somebody from the 1800s, we should
Bro.
believe you that you're far right. Like, nah, dude.
No. Look, so I don't know. Like, if we're presuppose, I don't believe that climate policies, for the most part, like hurt poor people, at least on net. Because if the counterfactual for the poor people is a destroyed fucking planet, it's probably better for poor people that they pay a little more for the carbon that they emit. Like,
So it's more important than GDP.
I think that's a good thing.
No, GDP is number one. GDP's got to be number one. Sorry, the planet gets destroyed. GDP's higher this way.
Tyler, I have explained this to you multiple times.
I've heard you. This is.
I don't think he's being contradictory here, Tyler. Like my general issue
The
is
GDP is 0 if we all die.
right.
Exactly.
understand that.
So one, the
Yeah.
counterfactual is worse, and
The
two,
GDP is 0 if we put all of our manufacturing into China, and then they
That's
fucking
not-
sanction us for being capitalist.
Sure.
No,
If we
that's
put
not
all of
true.
our manufacturing into China, that would be true. But
And then they
thankfully,
sanction
we
us
don't.
for something. As soon as they become the world power.
Wait,
as soon as
what do you
become
mean
the
if they say
manufacturing
if we
output,
put all our, even if I grant you we put all our manufacturing in China, what they're going to sanction the
And then-
service sector? People, there's still domestic demand for
and they
service
say,
sector
you know what?
goods.
Now all we have to do is flip a switch and your entire fucking country shuts down. You've admitted a national security argument already.
Yes,
and now you're
but I
fighting
already
against
told
it?
you. I have already told you that I believe this policy undermines the national security thing because you're fucking up all our alliances and tariffing our allies, and you're tariffing all the intermediate goods that that businesses use, that manufacturers use. Half of all the fucking goods we get imported from Canada and Mexico, who I understand weren't tariffed with this tariff round, are intermediate goods used to produce other goods. When you tariff those goods, you hurt manufacturing. You hurt the strategic industries. I gave you the example: semiconductor manufacturers, a very strategic industry, import goods from the EU that can only be made in the EU. The tariff is actively
Right now.
undermining what?
Okay.
What? Sorry, the tariff is actively
Right
undermining
now.
our ability to produce semiconductors.
Today, and then in a month it won't, because they're building companies in the United
do you think
States.
This
to
is
produce
high
this.
again. So I'm going to say opportunity
Hey,
cost.
good
I know your brains break when I say
Good.
opportunity cost, but I understand. But right now it's actively undermining our ability to produce these things, and there's no
the
reason
short
to.
term.
There's no in the long term it will as well, because we're not as efficient at producing these things as the Netherlands is, which is why the Netherlands produces these things.
We're not as efficient today. As soon as we tariff them the same way we're being tariffed by the European Union, it'll cost cheaper.
no.
We don't. I don't understand what your
Again.
argument is here. Like, they pay their workers just as much. They have just the same protections environmentally and such. Why can't we? Are you saying Americans are inept and they can't do it? If we're building these facilities here
What?
right now, we're doing Operation
They're-
Warp
they
Speed
have a-
2.0
I'm saying the
to push
opportunity-
with the regulation.
The opportunity cost for America is higher because we have other advanced sectors that Europe doesn't have. Most of the tech shit that contributes to our GDP takes place in America. The only like big tech company in Europe is like fucking Spotify, okay? The opportunity cost for America is higher. That's why the Netherlands should be building these things. They also have all the fixed cost built out already. They benefit from economies of scale. There are benefits from economies of scale, and because Netherlands has the economies of scale built out already, they benefit from that.
Sunk cost fallacy. We build it here, that's suddenly out the door.
Who's gonna hold on?
Wait,
what do you think?
no. It's not sunk cost.
infrastructure
It's
you're
fixed
talking
cost.
about. Yeah.
I
There's so
understand,
much wrong
but
with
infrastructure is a
It's sunk
fixed
cost
cost. Infrastructure
It's a
is,
sunk cost fallacy is what you're exposing, is what I'm saying.
no, I'm saying like for something that has very high fixed costs, it's more efficient to only build out that fixed cost once and have like one facility producing that thing. It's not more efficient to have two
I get that.
facilities producing these things. It's not a sunk costing. That's a fixed costing. That's a
You're saying it's a sunk cost fallacy is what's saying that. If that second thing is over here, then it's different. because then you can go get your products over here.
Okay, so we
we're not supporting each
understand
other, I
that with
agree.
these higher end things, you can't just come out of high school and start working there. You need training, you need experience, you need higher education, you need these things. We have a very limited supply of that in America, especially since we've stopped immigration pretty much, and we're just snatching people off the street and deporting them to the torture prison, right?
That's not even close to true.
And I mean, people are advocating right now for getting rid of the H-1B visa.
You just said we
right?
stopped
So
immigration?
hold on, stop. Let me make a point, okay? And then you can respond, okay? But here we go. We have a limited pool of workers who can work in these things. So they are already employed gainfully, right? In a lot of cases, the ones who are actually good at their jobs, first of all. And when we make a new plant that requires these things, like unless we import them from other countries, right? We just don't have the base. We don't have the educational base. We don't have the ability to have both where they were working before and where they are working where we want them to work to happen. So it's cheaper, easier, better to get it from the Netherlands. You understand?
Right now, yes, right now. I've said this multiple times. Right now it is. And then you build the facility here. They still have all the climate regulation. They still have higher taxes. They have all sorts of shit. There's no way it should be cheaper to build something in the Netherlands than here if we have the same output. We just don't have these factories built. They're being built right now. That doesn't. I don't care what because you keep giving me your feelings and what you think, despite the fact that I'm meeting you with evidence. I don't care.
I have provided way more evidence than you have. What do you mean?
You keep saying that, but you keep repeating the same point over and over. I feel like you basically made something up. I've caught you making shit up
about opportunity cost, and you keep forgetting.
I literally caught you making up something about debating about how they can't negotiate when there's a value-added tax. I showed you negotiations that took place with the value-added tax where
I said
limited to
what I said. I didn't even say anything. I asked you, how well do you expect negotiations to go when Donald Trump is going to these countries with the mindset? I said, if I literally said it was impossible that these countries lower their value-added taxes, then I apologize. It's obviously not impossible for these countries to lower the value-added taxes, but these countries rely on value-added taxes for a lot of revenue. So it's unlikely.
But it could be adjusted. They also rely on the tariffs that they have on us for as well. It's common practice.
No. Come on.
It is cheaper for us to do that.
Tariffs are not a major revenue generator in any of these European countries. Shut the fuck up. What do you mean, dog? Nowhere near the value-added tax. Yeah.
No, they're not. They're not generating revenue. What they're doing is they're taking away our competitive edge. So what Tiberius was saying earlier, a 10% tariff is just a competitive edge adjustment. It's not actually like a tariff to incentivize anything to come back here. It's just a competitive edge adjustment to try to make our products or worth the same amount as the people importing. So that's not a huge deal. But yes, they are not making money off the tariff. They're reducing sales with the tariffs, selling it to their own companies, and then making money off the taxes from the sales of their own companies because their own companies are allowed to scale up due to these tariffs, making it not wanting to buy U.S. products. The same idea of what's going to happen here. We put tariffs in, U.S. companies start selling more, they get to scale up as opposed to people over there scaling, coming back in and investing in stocks, bonds, and all sorts of shit that only make rich people richer. This money is going back into the pockets of the workers, not overseas, and then back in the form of more investment to make the rich richer. You keep missing that and just saying, look at the aggregate amount of money. Who cares who's getting it?
Because again, I think that trade helps poor people too, better than protectionism helps poor people.
I do too, but unfair trade practices are happening, and you seem to just want to keep going.
I don't understand what this unfair trade practice thing is. I believe that the optimal thing for poor people is to engage essentially in unilateral free trade.
Hold on, what unfair? Can you give me an example of an unfair trade practice between, let's say, Israel and America?
Israel? No, I can't. They put like a 10% tariff on us and kept it quiet.
What about
as soon as the U.S. said something, they slapped it up.
I'll give you another example. Netherlands and America.
Netherlands doesn't have their own tariff policy. They go through the EU. It would be the EU generally.
Okay, well, give me one of those.
I did already in this debate. It was their 10% tariff on our cars. As soon as Trump put in a 2.5, they dropped theirs at 2.5.
Okay, how is that unfair?
Adding an extra tax to an import. If adding a tariff isn't unfair, what the fuck is this discussion about?
We're not talking about fairness here. We're talking about
like again.
Do you not understand? Like, this isn't about fairness. This is about what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, I don't see tariffs not working. I see them working exactly as intended. They work exactly as intended.
Quick, what's it going to look like if tariffs work? Like 5 years from now, is that what we can safely say?
Well, Tiberius would probably be better for that, but he was saying like 2.5 million jobs out of the 8 million that we have extra right now that we're missing, and we start seeing a higher quality of job come in at a pretty low rate. Let's say it's only a 2% increase in manufacturing jobs. That's a slight bump up in wages when you're looking at wages versus inflation. It is a small gain, absolutely.
I'm going to fucking crash out, Tyler. Tariffs reduce wages in other sectors, dumbass.
Crash
you can't
out.
just assume everything. You can't assume everything fucking stays the same.
Can we do
wait,
outros?
Tyler, please, Tyler, please. Wait, Tyler, please. Do you agree, yes or no, that tariffs increase exchange rates, generally speaking?
Yes, and they also affect other sectors. Yes, I understand all that.
Okay. Do you agree that generally speaking, can we agree that tariffs, generally speaking, lower labor productivity?
I'm pretty sure that's right. I don't have that in front of me.
Okay. Do you think that those two things would, let's say, for the first one, hurt wages in export sectors? Do you think that raising exchange rates would decrease wages in export sectors?
Generally, yes, because those two things you just described are also features of unions, and generally those do decrease exports as well, yes.
Okay, wait. Sorry, I don't know if unions appreciate exchange rates, but okay.
Yeah, but it does. Having a higher paid union working on a job affects the price of stuff, and it affects the exchange rate and the trade agreements. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, no, I have to, please. No, wait,
you got a minute, because it's 8 o'clock in a minute.
Okay, 1 minute, please. Okay, so you agree that tariffs, although they might raise wages in some sectors, would decrease wages in, say, the export sector?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So I'm gonna fucking.
I gave you the GDP argument right up front, and all you've been doing is arguing the GDP argument.
That we're gonna get people to pay higher. We're gonna get people who have higher paying jobs when you're gonna have more people getting paid less.
You're not gonna have more people generally. It's gonna take us some time. It's not instant, dude. It takes. We're talking as fucking. He said 30 years for this shit to pan out. Generally, yes, you're gonna see some short-term problems.
Okay, great. We've circled the drain 100,000 times, and here we are. Thank you, one and all, for coming here. If you've enjoyed this content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We have one announcement, and then I'm going to let these people have their outro. So my announcement, gang, we have no other shows this week. Why? Why such a light schedule? It's because I'll be preparing to go on Timcast, on the Culture Ward podcast with Tim Pool, on April 11th on Friday. And I will be debating Lactoid, who you've seen here before, on Ukraine. I'm here to argue that Trump has been a massive failure in negotiating peace with Ukraine. As we see, Ukraine is continuously under attack. Even today, we're on day what? It's been 3 months, 2 months here, and he was going to end the war on day one. Hasn't happened. Putin is 100% at fault for the invasion. There is no justification for it, and I'll be debating this with Lactoid in the lion's den, so to speak. I'll probably be debating with Tim Pool as well and all his friends, let's say. But that's okay. Those are bad odds for them. Okay, great. We're here. We're welcome. So tune in. Again, I'm going to be preparing for that all week, so get your super chats and stuff in now. Let's give it first to Tiberius, let him start off, and then we're going to let Snail have the last word. Tiberius, who are you? Where can people find you? And what are your closing thoughts? Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Tiberius D. I'm a retired Twitch poll streamer. I don't really do this much anymore, but I'm happy to have people invite me on a panel, but I don't really stream anymore because I generally don't like talking about politics that much anymore. We've turned it into the next form of religion. But it's always a pleasure to be invited on the Wake Show. I really appreciate that, buddy. And it's good to see you. And congratulations on going on Timcast. And you versus Lactoid. That'd be fun. Best wishes to you, buddy. Just as my closing thoughts, I think I outlined most of what I wanted to say out pretty well. I understand that I'm the schizo poster in the back of the room when it comes to economics, where it's like, hey, look, I'm totally going up against the grain. I'm the 3% against the 97%. I 100% understand that. I I studied in economics, voted for Kamala. Like, I get all that shit. I'm not pushing this shit because I think I'm just completely nuts. I'm literally just tired of people, unfortunately, like Nonfon, who are like, hey, look, we're going to keep outsourcing your job, but you're going to get a better one. The economy's going to be better. I don't believe you guys anymore. I just fucking don't believe you anymore. And that's all this comes down to is I think somebody's been lying. And that's a whole other conversation. But no disrespect to you yourself, non-fan. I'm trying to, I'm archetyping you as the putrid enemy of 1,000, right? But yeah, if you want me on your panel, just feel free to reach out. I'll happily, at least try to engage with it. But it's been a pleasure to be back here, and it's been a pleasure to engage with all of you.
Okay, thank you for being here, gang. I have a link to his stuff, or at least his X account, in my YouTube. So click on that, give him a follow and all that. $5 from Feder Methodist real quick. Did we just witness a great party switch, Doodles? When we were young Dems, we were protectionists. I never was a protectionist. I was a free trade guy, but I love NAFTA. NAFTA is good. But we're going to give it to Tyler. Go ahead.
So first of all, big congratulations to Wick. You deserve it. You do a fantastic job here. Super entertaining. It's great to see somebody come up. Like, sincerely, like, super happy for you. I hope you provide Russia with some good content.
Where can people find you?
Average Debate Enjoyer, YouTube and Twitch. Av Debate Enjoyer on Twitter. And again, the only left-winger on this panel, maybe Tiberius a little bit here, because everyone else is basically a Reaganite. Like, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for going, and links in the description, gang. Nonfon, go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, I know things got heated, but I love all you guys. I really enjoy talking to all you guys. We're all chill. What you saw here today, though, was the mind of sane-washing tariff defenders, okay? Trump's policy has none of their goals behind it. He's totally incompetent. His team is incompetent. That's why their formula is so fucked up. These people, the minds of tariff defenders, cannot think in general equilibrium. They cannot think in aggregates. All they think about is wages in certain sectors. We're going to help this sector. We're going to help this sector. They don't think about everyone. They don't think about what's good for America as a whole. You saw a complete rejection of the theory and empirical evidence that supports that trade increases wages, protectionism lowers it. I'll end by citing this IMF study. I brought it up before. 151 countries from 1963 to 2014. We find tariff increases lead to economically and statistically significant declines in domestic output and productivity. Tariff increases also result in more unemployment, higher inequality, and real exchange rate appreciation, but only small effects on the trade balance. If you want to watch me defend free trade, I got like 2 or 3, maybe more debates coming up on free trade this week, I think. Head over to YouTube, NONFON Nonfon, Twitch and Kick and Nonfon420. My YouTube channel has all these debates edited and put up there. So go check me out. I'd appreciate it.
Check them out, gang. Links in the descriptions. Really appreciate you, buddy. Lastly, Snail G. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically, we saw none of the pro-tariff people defend Trump's tariff policy. They gave a bunch of arguments about other things some mythical tariff policy might potentially accomplish. None of that will probably happen. Like Tiberius mentioned, it's basically just vibes. People feel like, the economy's bad because of vibes. So, fuck it, let's try something crazy. Let's put a bunch of tariffs on everything, see what happens. Chances are we're just going to get a bunch of inflation, which, 6 months ago was the worst thing ever for poor people, was literally the, Satan of the average person. Now we're going to get a bunch of inflation, and that's good somehow. In practice, we're probably just going to see a bunch of automation come back to the jobs that do actually come back to the U.S. It won't actually be proper jobs. It'll just be high-skilled jobs working on robots in factories, which will make nobody happy. And yeah, that's basically it. As we saw, we really had no arguments for Trump's tariff policy, just this mythical, magical tariff policy that's not happening.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
So I just got out of the shower, so I don't know.
Were you watching the debate?
Yeah. No, I mean, look. So the optimal strategy is just to cite the IMF study over and over. So it's this you inebriated retard is like, oh no, it's in 30 years we're going to see the effect. It's like, good thing I got a study of 50 years here. Oh wait, it doesn't work at all, and you're retarded. Like that's what you should say, right? Like you should just repeat the IMF study over and over and over. It's perfect. And like these people don't know anything about statistics or anything. They could not like critique it for like using an instrumental variable over other causal
Well,
mechanisms.
Tyler might though. Tyler is one of those guys that gets really in the weeds.
No. I debated him on Twitter, and I cited the study a bunch of times. He couldn't respond to the point about exchange rate appreciation, and he just repeated a bunch of stuff about like specific specific sectors, like retail. Like he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Oh, I stand corrected then. Shit.
Dude, it's fucking insane the amount of times that we're like talking about things and we're like, do you have evidence that like this is good like on net? And they're like, well, you know, if we put
wait
tariffs,
and see in
like,
6 years, bro.
What? But they would just say like in 6 years, you know, they were like, we're gonna have these, you know, manufacturing plants again. I was like, just like, wait. You acknowledge it's at the cost of other sectors, right? Like that diverts investment away from other sectors. But Jesus.
No, I mean, you could, yeah. So you gotta love it when people like just instead of critiquing your position, they just characterize it. So it's like, oh, you're trickle down. Suppose I was a open Reaganite. Like, does that mean I'm wrong? No. So like, who cares? Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, good on you for just saying like straight up if that's where the fucking evidence leads. Like I don't know why they kept like, throwing that at you like a dirty word or something.
I know. I was just like, yeah, it's like the evidence supports that trickle down's a good thing. Then call me a trickle downer or whatever the fuck. Like, I obviously don't think it is trickle down because I'm listing like a direct benefit to poor people.
It's crazy. It's like, oh, you think tariffs are going to support a fucking carbon tax and externality tax? Like, what the fuck? Whoa, the pivot is crazy.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, his point is like, you say tariffs are bad for GDP, but X thing is good, and it's also bad for GDP. And it's like, one, I don't really know if a carbon tax is bad for GDP because it's internalizing an externality, and also the counterfactual there is like the planet being fucking destroyed, right? But also, like, I mean, I said this too, like, there are cases where there might be some social goal we want to achieve, and like the deadweight loss is worth it. I'm just not convinced that's the case with tariffs. He brought up like OSHA too, and it's like, one, I'm not convinced that OSHA is actually net negative GDP because workers.
I guess you could do the same thing with like minimum wages, where it's like, okay, I see you support this policy no matter what. You're a minimum wageoid, and to the extent I am too. It's like, ask them, okay, what would be your argument against $100 minimum wage? What could be your argument? And then they're like, oh well, it would affect unemployment. It's like, okay. So how did you determine that a $20 minimum wage would not affect unemployment? It's like, you see, they have nothing. So. Same way, ask them like, okay, if Trump announced 100% tariffs, because they misapplied their own formula, but let's suppose they didn't. And let's suppose they proposed 100% tariffs. What would be your arguments against that? And don't give me just, I think that's too high. Give me like an actual reason.
Yeah, Jesus. If you want to chat with me live, sub here or go to Nonfon420 on Twitch or Kick via the links below. Once again, please like and sub to help with the algorithm, and consider sending a donation through YouTube Super Thanks to directly support me, and I'll make sure to reply to any question you ask. See you guys next time.